What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. Bye, singing dog. Bye, goal.
I pronounce you.
Bye, wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hey kids, it's me. I would say that we're doing Sin's Canadian Connections, but I know that we're on my Sin's Chat Corner platform. We'll get into that later because of Blog Talk Radio difficulties. But I don't want to keep Ed holding any longer because I know that I'm like a whole minute past schedule here and he's probably waiting on me. So without further ado, Ed Roman, just 1 second. Hello?
Hello, Cindy.
Oh my God, it's you! It's Ed Roman.
It's you.
Oh my God, I'm so nervous.
Holy
cow! I'm not a figment. No, I'm actually real. I know, right? And then it's like I saw you were holding for like 6 minutes, and I felt really bad because I'm like, okay, it's 12:40. I could get a shower in, so I ran into the shower and I opened up my wine cork and I did everything, and I'm like, oh shit, we're 2 minutes behind. But you've been waiting for 6, so I apologize. I'm sorry.
Well, we always call in 5 minutes early here at MTS, people, because we just like to be on top of things. So if that's all it was. If you're in the shower, that's cool. I've really only been waiting a minute as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, then. Great. I sound more professional, and we're like 2.5 minutes into this. That's wonderful. So thank you for coming on. I know it's taken a very, very long time, and I've been on a very long hiatus, and I miss my show very much. And you're one of the people that I'm most excited to interview because you're very strange. I like strange people. I really, really like strange people. And I think you're very strange. It's strange in like a cool way. I mean, I'm not saying you're a freak. I'm just saying that you're strange, which is a good thing.
I take it as a compliment, Sin.
Thank you. And I also have to say, and this is in all fairness to, I deal with a number of different publicists, but I just have to take a moment to say Michael Stover, of course, is how you and I officially met each other, and I have to say that he probably hands down is one of the most hardworking, most sentimental, most wonderful publicist I've ever met, and he brings me the most wonderful people. So thank you so much again, Michael, because I'm sure he'll listen to this at some point. And you've got a great guy. I mean, I don't need to tell you that, but he's just awesome. I love him.
You're totally right. You know, Cindy, you work in the entertainment business, and you meet so many different people. And what you said just exemplifies the whole thing, because Michael is one of those people that is like, if you were, in dire jeopardy of something, the guy that you'd want to be there holding your hand or looking after things, he's so trustworthy. He's like, I'd make him an executor in my will. That's how much I trust Mike. He's a good person. He works so hard, like you said, aside from that, and knowing that he's trustworthy and all of that. I feel so lucky and blessed to be working with him. So kudos to you saying that.
No, of course, and I do that, and I try to make it a point, too, and like I said, I mean, I've had other people on the show, of course, of his, Doug Bryden's been on the show before, I've had Jiggly Jones on the show before, I've had a number of his different clients, and they never disappoint, they truly don't. I mean, he picks wonderful, passionate musicians who are very indie and very all different in their own way. I mean, Doug, obviously is more on the spiritual side of things, you're obviously just out in left field somewhere, but we'll get into that later. Everybody, and of course, he does have some token hotties, I'm not going to lie about that. The fact
and you know what else, let me say too, it's like that's the diversity factor, and that's what I think is great about Michael's business and the people that he has working for him, because it's like having that option, it's like having a garden. If you grow multiple things, you have multiple choices to be able to do things. So he's also a very clever person, you know what I mean? And let me say too, I know you've been fighting pneumonia and stuff, and I've been watching your progress and stuff, and I'm sorry to hear that I hope it's getting better though, to tell you the truth.
Well, I'm sitting here with a vaporizer to my right.
And
No, it's not. I've had this vaporizer on for 2 days, and the worst part about it is I had pneumonia when I was a kid, but I'd started a stomach flu. I had that for 4 days. That went away. Then I got influenza right when my kids came home. So this whole week that my kids have been home, it's really ruined our New Year's. It ruined our time together. For me, I don't mind being sick, but when it takes away from my children, I mind that a great deal. So it's really kind of sucked. Actually, the wine I'm drinking right now, this is the first glass of wine I'd had in 2 weeks. I haven't drank at all. I haven't, I've done nothing. I mean, I've been living in my house watching movies.
Right.
That's pretty much it. And, like, you know, obviously taking kid. And then, of course, as I'm sure you saw, my kid ended up on crutches. He went skiing, and then, of course, Kerwin got crutches. So I'm like, great. Now I got a sick mommy, and I got a kid on crutches, and then I got an 8-year-old that's running around like a bat out of hell. So it's been fun.
Right.
It's been great.
So that whole thing with
Right.
the bandages and stuff that I saw with the things that were set up, that they were checking him for concussion or something?
Well, and the thing is, because he's a seizure patient, of course, anytime that you have a fall, there's always a likelihood that he could, you know, experience seizures. So there's that aspect of it. And then, of course, it's, you know, it turned out to be a sprain. It wasn't a break. But for a kid his age, you know, he wakes up, he's in pain, he's crying. It's hard. I mean, he's 10 years old, he's not 18. So the reality is he needs a little hand-holding, and it's going to be okay. You know, I mean, now he's with his dad, so it's kind of like, okay, I've been checking up, and I'll see him tomorrow at school. I have to give him his new cell phone. But, you know, he manages. I mean, he does the best he can, and obviously, you know, you watch my feed, so we're more big on the whole seizure thing. I mean, that's
Right.
That's
I
huge.
get that.
I mean, that's our big thing.
But I guess they're
Definitely
checking him,
but,
double-checking him just to make sure, right?
Right. They do that, and then, of course, obviously they tweak his medication. Now, you know, when kids get older and they have seizures, as they grow and their hormones change, of course, and they get bigger, their needs are more. So they need more medication. They need more monitoring, which means more health for us is basically the long and the short of it. So that's why I've had this huge hiatus for coming back. That's why it's taken so long to get you on the show. I feel terrible. I've had to push back so many things in my career, but, you know, it's mom before mogul. I mean, that's pretty much it.
No, that's for sure. And family comes first as far as I'm concerned.
Big time. Oh, definitely so. Definitely. But we're not going to talk about me. We want to talk about Ed Roman. So I need you to just shut up and, like, drink your wine for 30 seconds because I want to tell the listening audience just my first impressions of you in case they haven't heard of you. So here we go. Ed Roman is by no means your average artist. The man coins his own phrases such as Ed Heads and makes a mockery at times of his self-admitted difficulty, meaning dyslexia, for those that do not know that you are dyslexic. He paraphrases in riddles. I've had, quote, I love this one. It's my favorite. I've had enough of enough, so enough is enough. I think that's grandiose. I love it. He boldly boasts of his flair for farming, posting a number of delicious delectables he consumes at the Roman Roost. He goes gaga over his misses, his fans and his followers, yet he holds such shyness and such, for lack of a better word, sheepishness of his red-letter rewards. Ed is never afraid to voice his vulnerabilities nor paid tribute to some of his close comrades. And last but not least, he possesses what I believe all Canadians are born with, which is class, charm, and cuteness. Okay, so I got to stop gushing about you and actually have to do my job and, like, ask you questions.
Well, yeah, you're
going to
make me cry soon, so I know.
Oh, my God. Why does everybody cry? They post on my damn wall. I got your card. You made me cry.
You know what it is,
Cindy?
You're wonderful with words. What you wrote, you submitted yourself, and for virtue of, without me sounding, you know, like I'm too exemplary of the whole thing, when I hear that, it means a lot because as far as I'm concerned, you know, we live in these little boxes and social medias where I think, you know, showing what we do with our lives, it's not just the travesties or the humor that we find in the subtle things of life, but to me, I'm always trying to lead by example, even if it means posting something that I'm cooking and eating or growing, because if that turns somebody else on, like a musical idea or a lyric that happens, to me it's the same thing. So it permeates my entire my existence. I feel honored when you say that, and I truly mean that. I was almost brought to tears.
Oh my God, that's it. I got to stop talking or something because I like constantly people are like, you make me cry. I like move them, and I'm like, you know, it means a great deal to me because there's very little about me that I like very much, and I have to say that when people keep reminding me, you know, your words. I truly believe, and I know this is a spiritual kick for some people that don't dig this, but I think it's very true. It took me till I was about 40, 42 to figure out that my meaning and my purpose here is not just to be some great radio show host or write all these great books, is to take those words and to make people feel good about themselves or motivate them or inspire them or make their passions come out. And if I'm able to do that, everything else is really secondary, to tell you the truth. I mean, I love what I do.
Maya Angelou said the same thing. It's not what you do or write or how you perform, it's how you make people feel. And what you said really hits home, too, because I think a lot of people in their 40s are going like, why am I really here? What have I been doing with my life? Some of us are hitting midlife crises, others are really reaching our climax when it comes to doing things, and others of us have been planting seeds for 25 years and just starting to see them come to fruition. So all of those things, I think, are part of the, but whether it's spiritual or not, to me, it's part of the human existence, so to me, it's spiritual.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. My God, it's almost like a cry fest and we're only 10 minutes in. Time for another drink. I'm just going to take a real quick little wine here thing.
Wait, time for some more wine.
Time for more wine. And cheese.
I have some cheese
so
and a couple cherries.
Awesome. Before we get to the actual interview questions itself, this is one area that I know because, as I mentioned, you post about this all the time from the farmer perspective, and you may not have an answer, but since I got you on the line, I ask this to everybody whenever I can. My son, obviously, seizure patient for the last year. My question to you is this, food-wise, very rare that anybody ever tells me I'm a believer in cannabis or a believer in anything that will cure my kid. But I'm just curious if you've heard or come across anything from a natural food standpoint that you've heard may be beneficial to kids such as my own.
Absolutely, and this is even from reading from 20 years ago in a book that I read called The Great Book of Hemp, which sort of chronologically goes back and talks about its intertwined behavior with people, the way it was used for medicinal reasons, from shipping to all kinds of industry, textiles, you name it, the stigma that's placed on it, whether it be through circumstance in the past. I think today, in this day and age, in the 21st century, is irrelevant, and people have to start. Look, if a pharmaceutical company can readily put out anything on the market and have 50 different side effects that actually create more of a problem than your actual problem that you have, and cannabis has a multitude of different. I even had a friend of mine that was a terrible asthmatic, and there was nothing that he could possibly do, and he became part of the Canadian study for people consuming cannabis in a multitude of different, and he almost was completely cured of it. He was off of 17 different medications that he was taking because of it. He could breathe better, and a lot of people don't realize, even for asthmatics, marijuana, grass, whatever you want to call it, is a natural bronchial dilator. So all of these things, and like I said, the stigmata is the thing that promotes this. Well, it shouldn't be there because it's this. But the reality of it is, if you look at statistically, it's helping people in a multitude of different ways, aside from the Cheech and Chong factor, right?
Oh, of course. That's well.
So I'm all there.
Yeah,
I'm all there. And there's even a gentleman I know that was working with a bunch of oils that I think I was following his progress for a while, but he went into hiding because the FDA and a bunch of people didn't like what was going on because he was using it. It was a controlled substance, but he was healing people.
Right.
So it's the same thing even with Royal Rife in the past with the Rife machines and light bulbs that he was developing for these high-frequency light machines that were helping people. And people today now are buying Rife machines or going to Rife services where people are offering room services, and they're feeling better. They're taking their pets to them even because their pets have ailments and all sorts of different stuff, and consequently it's better. But that's the thing about all this stuff in light of discovery, is that when we see as people, not what the media or the television or the FDA or any of those other people say it is, but when we see it and we know it is, that's what I find interesting about the human condition, is that we refuse to see it as what it is and go, hey, it's working, let's do this. Meanwhile, we sort of follow the dogma of like, well, it can't be this because we are doing this, this, and this. And I think there has to be a change in thinking, especially on a social level about it.
I agree 100%. And, of course, obviously I always get that paradox, which is, of course, I live in the state of Wisconsin. So, our fine governor, who, forgive me, my word of the day is asshat. The asshat decides that he's going to sign into legislation after some seizure child dies and says, hey, look, guess what? I'm going to allow you to get a letter from your neurologist that says you can use cannabis oil to treat it. That's wonderful, Governor, except you don't think that we're ready for medical marijuana, so we can't produce it here, get it here. We can't get it at a pharmacy. If I cross the state line, go to Colorado, on the guys I can get Charlotte's Web, let's say, or something to that effect, I try to come back here, you're going to arrest me. So, it's very
legal. Is it 6 states, Cindy? Help me.
Yes. Correct. It is 6 states. Colorado is the biggest one that produces the most mass consumption, and the problem is that you have so many parents that are flocking there. There's not enough to be able to help all of the children. We have a clinical trial here being done, and my neurologist is one of the best in the country. He's actually heading up the study at Children's Hospital trying to do a clinical trial. But what people don't realize is that you have to jump through hoops for the FDA to get any form of approval. And in the meantime, children are dying. Children are getting worse. They're having long-term effects from seizures. Oh, I could go all day about this. So we don't want to.
But I know, and with the FDA too, it's even with things like, it's not just that. It's making jam in your own home.
Correct.
And wanting to sell it. Even the Mennonites that are up here in our area that have been selling maple syrup for forever, that would have the little roadside stand, and they can't do it anymore because it's technically not safe.
Correct.
And it's like, so they're finding other ways around it. Come to our farm then, buy it from our farmer. They'll go to a supermarket that they've made an agreement with so they can sell it outside in the parking lot, There's other ways around stuff, and that's the thing. That's the other thing about this, Sin, is that it points out the difference of opinion. And the thing about this is that if we're the government and the people that elect the people that go into those positions, but they're not listening to us, then the wrong people are there. And the thing is,
right.
you can't just have the public have a big cut and offer them a bandage. When in actuality, that's what's happening a lot of time. There's these little bits of placation that seem to be like, yes, we said this, we did this, but it's really not to the extent that it needs to happen for fear of a lot of other things and reprisal and corporate stuff that's good. Even with the food industry, it's like the consumption of good quality food that's grown locally for people to consume, so that you're actually creating an infrastructure for people to grow food. People are buying it from those people, and at the same time, in some cases, people can grow it. I mean, when people are being arrested for growing a tomato on the front of their front lawn or pepper because it's not safe, it could have that. Meanwhile, Monsanto can go ahead and say, go ahead and spray pesticides. Let it kill everything, including every living plant on it and all the bioorganisms that are in the stomach. And, don't think about the fact that the plant is absorbing it like a sponge and it's inherent now in its DNA because of the suicide gene, and you're consuming it. The reality is the old adage goes true to form. You are what you eat. And if you have an entire populace of people that is sick, it behooves them, as the evil asshats, as you so well put it, to then invest in the pharmaceutical industry. And you follow the money tree, and a lot of those people have vested interest in both.
Yes,
that's what's alarming about this. And the public is largely uneducated about that, but they are waking up to the reality that it's happening in your own backyard. My family is sick. My kids are sick. My uncle is sick. What is going on here? By rule of thumb, if you look, I've been growing food for a long time and come from a huge family of farmers. Evolutionary way, if the Darwin thing's not that weird to think about, things are supposed to get stronger every generation. And it all depends on climate and everything that's obviously a factor in it. But the reality is that we as a species are getting weaker. And it's not just because of our environment or what's going on in subtle changes in the solar system and everything. It has to do with what we do to ourselves. And if it's largely in control of a populace of people that have vested interest in only making money, then it's not good. It's not healthy.
I agree. I definitely agree. And I'm running into the stigma now, and first of all, I hate being called a public figure, but people tell me this all the time. They call me a celebrity, a public figure. I'm like, really? Get over yourself. Do I look like a public figure to you? I'm so not diva-like. But long story short.
I think so. So. For sure you do. You're out there, man. You're shaking.
Are you drunk?
You're doing what you have to do.
Dude, we're 18 minutes in and he's already drunk. I'm kidding. I'm very humble, very modest, very not into myself and the whole bit. And now I made this whole page the other day, and I said, yes, I'm going to outwardly make these T-shirts, and I'm going to show support for cannabis. And automatically, well, you don't want to do that because you're a public figure. Well, yeah, actually, I do. I want to do anything that helps my kid.
But
granted,
you know what?
I'm not going to
pour
Coke.
True. But at the same time, what you're in your statement at the beginning, you were talking about this humbling approach to stuff, and you're even saying that you don't consider yourself. To me, that is an attraction. I find something like that in the humility of an individual, even though they may have prowess. The fact that they, look, I've met people that have 50 Cent connections, and I've met people, and directly met and been hugged by Herbie Hancock. Now, if I told you the diametrically opposed story by each of those situations, you'd think, why is he that way, 50 Cent? And I'm sorry to bring it up, but it was this sense of egotism. He wouldn't even sign an autograph for a kid that was dying. Meanwhile, I'm behind Massey Hall in Toronto being hugged by Herbie Hancock, telling me how appreciative he was of my accolades. He signed the back of my union card. I walked Dave Holland and him to the tour bus. This man has prowess coming out of the yin-yang. And 50 Cent, I'm sorry to say, but it's all just ego-based boost. It's no different than what you see in mainstay entertainment today. So I like that. When I talk to somebody, there's stories about Dizzy Gillespie that's like that, and to me, he's like was a living god at one point. But he wouldn't hesitate to pull somebody in off the street if they had a musical question and talk with them for 3 hours till they understood the idea. That to me is a real human being. You know what I mean?
I would agree. I would. So I'm a little nervous, but the reality is he's my kid, and again, if you don't like my cannabis stance, you know what? Find me a cure then. Why don't you just go out down the street and then find me a cure? Because it's really wrecking our life. It's wrecking his life. It's wrecking my life.
Hey, if it's working, if it works and it's not hurting anybody, and it's not like you're out, I'm peddling it to kids in the schoolyard. so that they miss class. If your kid is getting better, the health and well-being of your child is increasing, who has the right to tell you that you can't do that?
Well, apparently
when they're always toting the idea of the health and well-being of Americans, the health and well-being of Canadians. Meanwhile, you turn around and you look and you go, what the hell is this? And you're like, I can't believe this is, but that's a rule and a regulation. It doesn't make sense, though. Oh, my gosh, listen to this. Oh, goodness. Okay, I have to stop us now because if I don't ask you good questions, Michael's going to yell at me or he's going to say, dude! But the whole interview talks about pot. I'm so sorry, Michael. We're getting onto it. All right, question number 1. Now, I myself, and this is a personal belief, I've always been of the ideology that the core of any soul is best discovered through 3 different things: their family, their friends, and their fervor. Sticking to this theme, we're going to start off talking about 3 things that I know that are to the core of you. So first of all, let's start off with your father. As I understand it, your father has served as some form of inspiration to you. Sad and unfortunate, I'm unable to invite him as a guest today because, of course, he's passed on. So if you could, please divulge to us some of the principles in life that he put in place for you, which kind of produced the man that we see today. You're going to make me cry again. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's good. My dad was one of those people like we were just talking about. They came from nothing. They came from Europe, from Slovakia. My grandfather had $500 or something in his pocket because you had to be sponsored at that time to come over with some money. Same thing with my other grandfather. They both came over around the same time, and my family's met here just as Europeans do, or anybody for that matter of any culture. They sort of cheerio effect of people living close to one another. But my dad was, because he came from a farming family and was always very interested in agriculture because he studied at the University of Guelph, which coincidentally is the biggest agricultural college we have in this country, and at the same time, had a minor in political science because he was always very active in our community, whether it was with the Lions Club or anything like that was going on. My dad was always trying to offer a hand. That alone right there, those 2 things, just the fact that he was always trying to help in some way in the public, aside from what he did for us as a father, growing food, teaching us things, skills, all of those things were a part of what my dad was always trying to instill in us. So for me, hand in hand, the political thing and the farming thing, because even at the age of 5, I remember at a table of 8 of us at a dinner table in a small little kitchen in Markham, everybody was airing their opinions about things, but my dad, after the kind of dust would settle, would look at me and go, well, what do you think? And for me, even at that young age, being asked by my father after this huge political debate, it meant that my opinion mattered, even at my age. So it instilled in me that it was important that the things that I thought about I should articulate. That hand in hand with my dyslexia and everything that kind of happened was a natural transition for me because music is so just instantaneously self-expressive. For dyslexics and people, I'll say this right away, don't ever look at it as a disadvantage. It's completely an advantage in many ways. It just means you think about things differently. So consequently, a lot of dyslexics end up with photographic memories and things like that. But my dad, because he saw that too, was also very encouraging of those things. So he wouldn't be opposed to saying, hey, Edward, come here, come and sing that song for Mr. So-and-so, when they came over for a meeting in our kitchen or something. That encouragement and feeling that sense of pride from both of my parents was also something that really, really pushed me. But then I was canvassing doors for my dad's municipal elections when I was 7. Hey, it's Ed Roman, and I'm canvassing for Tony Roman, and that it was that activity that was really important to him. And then on the same token, his attention to detail when it came to even with federal politics, because my dad also became the first coalition candidate ever in the history of Canadian federal politics, which meant the Conservatives and the Liberals ousted him, or their leaders, and asked my dad to run as an independent in Ottawa, and he won. And that's really an incredible victory for one person to do that and then remain an independent in Ottawa despite being asked across the floor by the Conservatives and the Liberals. He felt he could do more for his constituents as an individual as opposed to playing what he called politricks. And that's the other thing. My dad, in this humility factor, is teaching the humility. It doesn't matter who you are. When you meet somebody, you smile at them, you shake their hand, you look them in the eye, and you try to get to know them. You listen to them. all of those things make you who you are. So my dad was always like, look, I'm not a politician. He hated that word. He considered himself a public servant. That means when you're elected by the people, you do the job that they want. And consequently, that's why today, if I even still go to the town of Markham and I'm playing a gig somewhere and somebody will come up and go, are you Ed Roman? And I'll go, yeah. Aww. And they'll go, I knew your dad, and they'll tell me some story, about my dad that would be like, they called the town offices because there was a dog barking in the backyard that was stray. My dad would go, pick up the dog, and take it to the dog pound. Like, that's the kind of person my dad was. And because of it, I didn't get to see a lot of him because he was so active. He'd be gone, in the barn at 5 o'clock in the morning. By 9 o'clock, he was already at the town offices, showered and shaved. He was home at 5 o'clock for dinner, be gone at 6 again until 11 o'clock at night because of council meetings. So that's also why I was really raised by my grandmother and my mom, because they were always around. And my brothers and sisters were much older than I was. But my dad, when he was there, was like this enigmatic character, that was always either joking around or that's even where my idea for sarcasm and silly songs come from. It was like that. My dad used to do that all the time and bastardize songs, and we'd get a kick out of it. So my dad is a really big part of me, and I miss him today because of it. I'll tell you this, Cindy. If he was alive today, he'd be the Prime Minister of this country.
Oh, my gosh, look at that. Do you think that he would have shared the stage with you?
My dad, there's somewhere I'm trying to dig up a video of my dad when I was 18 and I went to Humber College. And myself, him, another family friend, and a local clergyman from a church that was on this, like, hiatus vacation that we were on, we were all jamming. And my dad never played an instrument. He was a little tone deaf even, but that didn't stop him. But I want to have that kind of memory again, and I think that my dad, he's with me all the time. I know I've heard from other people who've called me out of the blue and said, your dad would be really proud of you right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh goodness, I didn't mean to upset you. But
upset. Listen, that's the thing. Tears come in many forms, and that shows your humility as a human being.
Yes.
And it also means you can be extremely happy because of the beauty that you remember.
And, of course, obviously it stands to reason, I guess, from the interviewer's standpoint. It goes without saying that the man that I'm talking to right now is a combination of different factors. It comes from a variety of different sources, your father being one of them. In fact, I was thinking about it earlier this morning, and I thought to myself, I could just envision this angel looking down and just laughing his ass off at his child and thinking, oh, my God, look at him. He is just so unique and so silly and so off the wall and so different. And I thought, how lucky is this guy? I mean, not lucky necessarily.
Oh, he just said to me, ass hat bobblehead. That's the key word.
Very cute. I just thought to myself, I'm like, sometimes I know that it's so sad for people. But they forget the gift that they get in that you have someone who's an angel who's watching over you and looking at you and being so proud and feeling and being on your shoulder even when you think that they're not there. And so, this would not be a complete interview without incrementing these sorts of things. Your dad being one of them. The next thing I want to talk about is Roscoe, because I get to see pictures of Roscoe. In case anybody doesn't know who Roscoe is, that's your playful little pet. So I just have two little questions for you on that. How long have you had the dog? And then second of all, does he ever rouse within you this craving? Because I could totally see you doing this, composing this whole song about furry friends, creatures, dogs, the whole 9 yards. I could totally see this parody. So tell us a little bit about Roscoe.
Roscoe's our dog. He's our Collie Shepherd cross, and he's a rescue. And I would say a bit of a jail boy, because 6 months of his life he spent at the SPCA. He was then adopted by somebody for about 8 months that it didn't work out. Went back to the SPCA for 6 months, where they held him because he was so lovable they didn't want to destroy him. Aww. Lo and behold, we came along, and he's been with us now for 7 years. And wow. I could see myself writing a song about him, because when our other shepherd, Roddy Cross, that passed, Nikita, we moved up here already to the farm, and a couple years later she passed. I wrote a song for her on the album called Oracles and Ice Cream. The track is called 12/28/13. And the reason that is because it's the actual date that she passed away, the 12/28/2000. Okay, so it has that kind of significance to it, right? And the weird thing about it was that the clock in our kitchen kept stopping at that time for a whole year. And over that period of time, her health started to decline. And then on the 12/28, she passed away. So I kind of titled the tune. I saw it as some sort of thing like, this clock, I believe, in my house has been owned by a Washington senator that came from an old cottage that my grandmother bought years ago in the 70s. I think has some sense of psychometry to it. It tells me things. It sort of talks to me. Other people talk through it. And provided I keep it wound, it kind of keeps doing that. But Roscoe, he's down Roscoe Productions. He's my icon, my emblem, holding his placation tool, which is his ball. He can't do anything without his ball.
Oh my God! Look at that. So this is cool. See, so we got element number 2 being the doggy, and then number 3. I wanted to mention this in case some of your listeners, and my listeners, I should say, don't know this. But earlier this year, your brother unfortunately suffered a stroke. So maybe just enlighten some of the listeners as to his current condition, as well as the impact that hardship had on you and your family.
Well, to elaborate, it wasn't a stroke. It was just turmoil and an attempted suicide. And unfortunately, it's okay. He is, how might I say, on the mend, but at the same time, with help, with those kinds of issues. And I've done work in the past where I was a music therapist with similar people for about 4 years at the Pine River Institute with kids that were in similar circumstances. It's very difficult to reach out if nobody's reaching back. And at moments of crisis, it's usually when this occurs. So I have to just keep an open door, an open mind, an open heart, and be there for him when he needs it. And because of that, I've written it into song. I've written it metaphorically into something that's helping, hopefully, maybe will help him once it's recorded, and I haven't performed it for him or anything yet. And for myself even, just thinking about what that is and what people are going through, right?
Yes, exactly. I don't know where. I know I read it somewhere. I thought it said stroke. I apologize. I guess that's unusual.
That's okay.
I usually try to get everything right. Okay, so
no, it's okay. I do have a good brother of mine, Ken Segrist, though. I will say this, because had it not been for Ken Segrist up here in Canada, whose brother had just recently suffered a stroke, and he's not doing too well, and I don't think he's going to make it, so my prayers go out to him. It's because of him I met Mike Stover. So I owe an incredible, I consider Ken like my second brother. He's one of those people that's always looking out for me and all that. And because of that, I may have been mentioning it in post and stuff. But maybe that's what I was reading. That could be it.
He's a brother. Okay, well, let's raise a glass to both of them. Let's say to both brothers, hopefully. Health, wealth, and peace.
Yeah, man. To all the brothers. Anybody. Everybody.
Mm-hmm. Except for mine, because he's a jackass. Oh, I didn't just say that on radio. Yes, I did. Okay. Because I can. It's my show, so I can do that. Okay. So on to question number 2. I always like pointing out fun facts. This is a fun fact, okay? Speaking of the whole family familiarity thing. Now, did you know that Ed Roman is not the only Ed Roman that exists? There's an Ed Roman that's Ed Roman Guitars. There's another one that's an entrepreneur. There's even a third one that's a dead basketball player. Were you aware of all this?
I was, and there's also another Ed Roman that's a potter.
Damn you.
And another Ed Roman that is a glass blower. One day I was sitting at home and the phone rang, and this woman called from France. And her voice said, hello, is this Ed Roman? Yes, it's Ed. Oh, I just love your work, your artwork. Oh, it's just so beautiful. And she's raving on about the art. And I'm thinking, who is this woman calling from France? And I'm elated that she loves what I'm doing. And she goes, I'd like to order 15 of your glasses. And I went, my glasses? And I'm thinking, I'm not wearing glasses right now. What are you doing? So I do the search, and I find it's a miscommunication, sure enough. And at one point, I had contacted Ed Roman in California, the guitar maker, and the potter, and the glass blower, and I wanted to start the Ed Roman Project, where 3 artists would collectively get together to try to do something, but it never happened.
Aww, bummer. Well, look,
you roll the dice. You roll the dice and you see what happens, but sometimes it's like, wow, it doesn't always work out. And Ed Roman in California, I mean, the guitars that he makes are beautiful, and there's a lot of people that seek out his stuff. He's been making amazing instruments for a number of years.
Well, look at that. Well, I guess what I was wondering was, is your name common? I mean, because obviously you're in Canada, I'm in the United States, so I just didn't know if the Roman name was just common, and that's why you find so many.
Well, we have Romans all over the U.S. I have, and I'm also, here's the thing about the Roman name. We come from a village in Europe that's called Veliki Rusko, and another small village, which means Big Russia, and the town of Roman. It was like a little village. And very much like what we had going here in the town of Markham, where there was pretty much 30 of us in an extended family of uncles, aunts. We were all on 1,500 acres of, cattle farm and workable cash crop farming. It was the same there. The name was adopted from the town. So the other half of my family is also Kudla, which is also Slovak. They went to Poland, and now I've got, I don't know, there's got to be 50 Kudlas that are all over the U.S., from Buffalo, Pennsylvania, all the way down to Dallas. And then I've got the other half is a Kastura of that side, and they're out down Pennsylvania as well, and they're also out on the West Coast and towards Los Angeles and stuff. So that name kind of stuck because of the village. And it's funny, most people think they hear Roman, that it's Italian. And even during my dad's political election, some of his opponents would say, well, he's just a part of the mafia. And in the ignorance, they wouldn't even realize that he was a Slovak. And it had nothing to do with that. It was just like, no, my dad's reputation is what got him there. But anybody will say anything to slander anybody for it, right?
Oh, of course. I agree, 100%, definitely. Look at that. Now here I thought, okay, fine. So the other thing that occurred to me when I was thinking about this is, and this is in your own area, obviously, have you reached, and this is my own little phrase that I've come up with, the status of what I call relative recognizability, meaning Ed Roman walks down the street in his local town, and they're like, hey, that's Ed Roman. He's a singer, blah, 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 and he's kick-ass.
It happens now. It has been happening slowly here in Canada, which is sort of interesting. If I've gone out to the store or something, people don't usually say anything. But if my wife goes by herself, if Kim goes, they'll say, so is he in the country? Is he playing with who? Is he on the radio? That kind of seems to be happening when I'm not around. So I get the report from Kim, and just the fact that the local paper's been running articles on me, and the big magazine where I am up in this neck of the woods is In the Hills. They just ran a huge article on the new album as well, which has been great. But the irony, and I said this when I was down in Kentucky, and I mean this with true respect to all Canadians, too. I love Canadians, but it's ironic, and I said, this song is dedicated to all the Canadians that have had to come south of the border to find recognition. Because even in the past with other musical projects that I've done, wherever we got arrested, it wasn't in our own country. It was somewhere else first. And I think that's like, even with Hendrix, he had to go to England. I mean, he was playing with Little Richard and people, but really with Chaz Chandler and everything that happened over there, they readily accepted him almost as a Brit, but really he's an American. And then until he came back, it was like, oh, Jimi Hendrix, geez, he's playing for the Beatles, and Paul McCartney's in the audience. There's a huge shift of the way people think, it seems, when you go somewhere else and you receive the acclamation. But look, I don't care. I'm just happy to play for people that want to listen and to participate in it somehow. And if that means going to the States, I love the U.S. That's the thing about the Canadian-U.S. thing. I think where a lot of Canadians get lost, and I can say I've been there before in the past, thinking about the cultural difference. There isn't. The cultural difference exists in our minds. The problem exists more on a governmental level. I think more Canadians are obsessed with what goes on in American politics than they are about what happens in their own Canadian environment. You ask most Canadians about what Bill C-18 is, and they don't know. But, they'll know exactly about what Obama's talking about in the U.S. And then you meet people and you talk to people, like you're my friend. There's other people that I know all over the U.S. that are my friends, and I go, wow, I like people like this. They're just normal people, everyday people that are just making a living, talking about what they're doing, existing, dealing with the same kinds of problems. There's no difference. We're all the same in many ways. There's just cultural things, a border. We got snow. You got south of the border, warm weather. All that. It doesn't really matter. But the difference is what drives me crazy sometimes. And really the problem is, like I said, it's politics.
Yes, I agree, 100% actually. By the way,
but you talk to most Americans about their political situation, and they're usually like enraged about it.
I know. I don't bring up politics. I don't bring up religion because I'm like, this is just crazy. What's your temperature, by the way? Because it's 3 and it's snowing right now here. I'm looking out my front window.
Canadian temperature. minus 14 here. So for you guys, that's like,
oh my
what?
God.
0?
Yeah, that's what my guess was, something along those lines.
Minus 4, but it was minus 47 here the other night with the wind.
Oh, my God, that is insane. Do you even leave your house? Because that's crazy.
Yeah, I have
that's
3
like
layers of clothes and a jumpsuit plus a balaclava and goggles when I go for a walk with the dog.
Oh, my God, that is craziness, absolute craziness. Okay, so now I don't feel so bad because, like, we are freezing right now. So this wine is doing really well. I get to do my show in pajamas, looking at snow, drinking wine, talking to you. Couldn't be happier right now. Oh, except I got...
Me neither. I'm wearing my Santana shirt. Yeah,
we rock. We do. We rock. Okay.
Totally.
Now, next. Ed is both comfortable and crafty in the areas of music composition and, of course, playing an array of different instruments. So I know that age 5 kind of marked your prelude to performance, but can you tell me, when was the actual induction into beginning to script songs? Because I'm not quite sure I know that. So if you can tell us that. And also, I was curious to ask, do you remember the very first composition you ever penciled? Do you remember what it was, the name of the song, what it was
Absolutely.
about, etc.? Okay.
It was, yeah, I do. Okay, so part 1, I guess that was like, you know, when you're starting to really get into music and falling in love with certain acts and bands and things that they're talking about, you realize you were mimicking them and playing the songs, you know, that you like to play. But at the same time, you have that reverence for the idea that I should try to write something like this. I should try to do something like this. And you start dabbling in what those things are. And for us as kids, because we grew up at a time without computers and cell phones, an instrument was that high form of technology, even if it meant an old Heinzmann piano in a corner or a guitar that was missing strings. It was all something that you could sort of creatively do something with. And it was the way we amused ourselves. So I would say that... you know, experimenting more was like around 13 and 14, pre-high school, just in a high school, even 12. We wrote a song called Couch Potato, and it was all about what would happen to you if and what happens to you when you just sit around and watch TV all the time. And really, it came from an influence from a band called the Shuffle Demons, which is up here in Canada, which was an all-horn band with sort of this sort of jazz motif background and led by really competent, you know, jazz players that came out of the Canadian industry, Richard Underhill. Anyway, that was sort of the making of that, even that sarcastic comedy aspect to writing that I really appreciated, because I grew up listening to Dr. Demento. So I heard Weird Al Yankovic or Freddie Blassie or any of those guys that were doing those songs, I loved it. And it was also my secret way at night. You know, I had a little radio in my room, and my parents would be asleep, but I'd be secretly listening to Dr. Demento, right? And I liked that. It made me feel good. And when I took it to friends and played it for them or performed it for them in Wooded Kitchen's basement, they liked it. It gave me that connection to myself where I felt this sense of self-worth because I thought about something, I played around with it, created something, and showed it. And for me, that went also, too, with the aspect, it was the counterpoint to the teachers going, you're stupid, and da-da-da-da-da, because you can't read and write, and all those things that go hand in hand with dyslexics that they're always dealing with, especially in the 1970s when they didn't understand it as much. But the first song I would say we really sort of devoutly wrote was a tune that we wrote for my grandfather that was called To Know This Man. And it was about my grandfather's migration coming from Europe and the appreciation that I had for the fact that I'm here, because I say 85 to 90% of my family were killed during the Nazi occupation of Czechoslovakia. So had he not been, you know, in 1929 when he saw the political climate changing, he said, I'm going to Canada or the United States. He picked Canada. It was just like a coin toss. And because of that, I'm alive. And that song for me was like, you know, it was really, and for me too, it was also like I wanted to show my mom that what I was doing, and my parents for that matter, even my grandmother, because she'd been living out without my grandfather for a number of years, how much I was really into what I was doing and the sincerity of it for me. So and it's funny, you know, nobody has ever asked me that question other than the people that were a part of that experience. So I feel privileged that you're asking me that.
See, this is why that's when I get excited, because I'm like, most of the time when I do a radio show, somebody's like, oh, no one's ever asked me that. And that's like the big thing. That's when I know I've succeeded, when somebody's like, oh my God, nobody ever asked me that question. I'm like, score. That means you'll remember this moment because I asked you something someone else didn't. And before I forget, we got to grab a glass of wine, and I do not want to forget this. So put your glass up, and anybody else that's listening or will listen to this. My very, very dear friend, I'm supposed to be in New York right now, and one of the reasons was to meet Lana Graziano for the first time. She's a dear friend of mine. She actually is a sister of Renee Graziano. I don't know if you guys get the Mob Wives there, the New York Mob Wives.
We do,
so,
yeah.
Yeah,
we
Renee
just in the last couple of years.
Oh, really? Okay, so Lana is actually Renee Graziano's sister and Jennifer Graziano's sister, who produces and makes the show. She's a very dear friend of mine. It's her birthday today. So I did not want to forget to say, although I sent her a very gushy email at midnight or shortly thereafter. So congratulations, Lana. She is just, oh, God, she's just class act. I'm telling you right now. These mom girls do not get, they don't get half the amount of accolades that they should. Everybody looks at them and thinks, oh, she's a gangster's, kid and da-da-da-da-da. She's a wonderful woman, absolutely wonderful woman. So here's to you, Lana.
Well, and television is such a bad example for the exemplification of somebody's true personality. I mean, look at even Gordon Ramsay.
Right.
You watch his show, and it seems like he's ready to crap down somebody's throat, but you see him in an interview, and he's this soft-spoken, easygoing kind of guy. I think the industry plays those things up on purpose because people eat it up.
Tell me. Right? So I'm just like, okay, so I just thought to myself, okay, I can't forget that because I'm a little burned about the fact, although then I wouldn't be really talking to Ed. I'd be on the fly with my laptop trying to find a hotel to do an interview with you. But it's not stuck in this crappy state instead of being in New York and partying with Lana. Yeah, this is so much better. Of course it is. Okay.
That makes me feel better.
Question.
I'm glad that I'm the equivalency of a trip to New York and hanging out with a TV personality.
Well, Lana is, and it's not just her. I mean, some of my dearest friends, actually, to be honest with you, Canada, New York City, California are my top three. Some of the people that I love more than I can even describe all live there. New York is probably my hands-down favorite. And I have the hots for one of my former guests that doesn't notice me, but that's a whole other matter. So let's talk about you in school. Let's get on to you in school. You were an attendee of St. Robert's Catholic High School and St. Andrews College. I'm not a Canadian. Most of us that are listening probably are not. So I wanted to kind of ask this question, not because I'm dense, but because I'm from here. So I was just wondering, the offerings from an educational standpoint, are they more geared to the arts as opposed to, let's say, something like a white-collar profession? Because I envision most of the Canadians that I've encountered come from a creative/artistic background. So talk to me a little bit about the educational thing. Is that the case in Canada?
Absolutely. Well, you must know, like, I've been an educator for 25 years. I'm teaching music. The St. Robert's factor was definitely more of an academic program, and I would say that there's a split in when I was, especially in high school, between sort of a vocational, hands-on college, which they would call it, which was really a high school for trades, and then the academic side of things, which was more like St. Robert's or Richmond Hill High School, the public version of that same thing. Then, just to make one correction, I didn't go to SAC, St. Andrews College. I had a lot of friends that went there, and I used to play a lot of music there and play music with people that went there. But I actually went to Humber College to study music and to sort of fill in that void there. The academia factor is what was really difficult for me personally, because right around the time I was finishing high school, the first art school that was actually hands-on applied theater, music, art, textiles was built. And I didn't have that opportunity. So I literally struggled all through high school, despite the fact that I was, A+ student and won the scholarship to go to college for music, as well at the same time figuring out whether or not I wanted to go into theater, because I did an incredible amount of acting and a lot of stage work as a young kid all through high school. So I made that decision then, and it felt music to me still has a sense of theatrical connection, especially when I perform. People say I'm extremely theatrical, and it helps me illustrate what I'm talking about and what I'm doing. So I would say that there's a divide there, and in fact, even much more so now, there's probably less of an opportunity for kids to be able to have that kind of an experience in an all-arts school that's still focusing somewhat on academia, mathematics, whatever it is. My goal at some point in my life and getting older is to try to create more of those environments for kids, because That's why I had so many students for so many years, whether it was privately or I was working at the conservatory or at the other school that was in the city of Toronto, because so many schools are removing the music programs, whether it's in high school or even grade school. So, and that happened to me in the 1970s when I got of age to get to my teacher, Mr. West, who was in our school. They removed it on the idea that it was too expensive to maintain it. But it killed me. It was like I was like devastated when I thought I was going to get the opportunity to do this, and now it's gone, and somebody stuck a recorder in my hand. That was fine, but it wasn't. God, kids were playing drums and bass and horns and violins and stuff, and that was all gone. And so for me, you know, here I am dealing with this, you know, like learning disability, you know, and that's the thing. I was so adamant about wanting it that there were times at recess where I'd break in through the school window where the old piano was and start playing the piano, and then I'd get a detention because I wasn't out playing in the schoolyard road hockey with everybody. And I didn't mind playing road hockey, but I wanted to play the piano. And I think despite they may have thought it was a deterrent, it actually propelled me because I'm not the kind of person that says you can't do that. I want to challenge, and if somebody says you can't, I'm going to say, you want to make a bet? I'll show you. So for me, it was like one of those things that really said, okay, I'm not going to get punished for something I love to do, and I'm going to show you how much I love to do it. So I see a huge difference in the way that schooling is today, and what else is alarming today in the education system where I've had kids coming to me and they've been medicated when they're going to school in the daytime, but when they come to my classes, I'll say, well, what, you seem good, you seem peppy and everything's fine, and, I'm not on my medication. And then I'd question it over a period of time, and I'd go, well, why?
Sure.
And they'd say to me something like, well, because I like your classes, you make it fun. To me, it's not that I'm trying to be egotistical about it, but it occurred to me that it's not what the kids are learning. In some ways it is, but it's how we teach it to them. And this idea that, you know, through the things that the schools have, they say, well, we have to have this certain standard, and we're being checked every year, and we have to have all these grade points that are going. Look, if you're turning out kids that don't retain the information or aren't using it in a clever way, we're failing our youth by not changing the way we need to teach. Even when we tie the food and agricultural thing into it, as far as I'm concerned, every kid should be out in the dirt in the spring and summer out of school between 9 and 12 in the morning. And in that process, aside from learning this is a carrot seed, this is how it grows, and you're hoeing and you're pulling weeds, you're also fundamentally seeing things in other ways. You're not in a classroom with a book, with a teacher and a board, or you got a computer that you're sitting at. It's your hands-on doing something. And I can't tell you how many times, aside from what I've been directly doing in my garden or on the farm, where something else has arisen, and I'm forced to think creatively because of it. Okay. And because of that, your mind gets stronger. You don't have a creative thinking mind of somebody that's just continually regurgitating and forgetting.
I got a question. This one I ask all my musicians, and especially because you're in Canada, so I'm curious on this one too. I know a ton of people here, at least, or even some that I've interviewed, that really lack any kind of formal training / education as it relates to being a musician. In your personal opinion, because obviously not only are you a teacher, but you are a versed musician, how fundamentally important is it that a person is educated in the field of music prior to becoming a musician? Because some do fabulously, and they're self-taught, you know what I mean? I guess I'm curious of your stance on that.
I would say the most important thing is the feeling of the person and the heart that comes from the experience. The educational aspect, to me, you can put a kid in Suzuki, you can get them learning young, but to me, music is a form of self-expression. I don't care what composer, what time frame, what year, they're all images of emotion. So if you can't create that emotion without the literary aspect of it, the educational aspect of it, how is that music that you're reading then supposed to take on a life? There are markings on all pages of music that suggest a rise in tempo, a rise in volume, an intensity to the way something should be played. That's direction to the human emotion. But to me, because I learned first how to be emotional, I wasn't in music lessons because my brothers and sisters went through, and my parents thought, well, he's probably not into it, but I'm sitting playing the piano for hours a day. That thing to me was like, okay, later when I was like, I felt ignorant because I knew a lot and knew how to do a lot. When somebody asked me a question and I didn't know, I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like the feeling of somebody coming up to me and saying, read this, and I couldn't. It bothered me because I thought, I am music, so I should know what music is. And to me, that was the opposite pursuit. It was the other side of it. Knowing how to communicate on a piece of paper with somebody without having to show them is a vital skill. But it's not something I use every day. And nor does even the greatest musicians. I mean, Irving Berlin, he could only play on the black keys of a piano. He wrote some of the most incredible American songbook class. Yeah, look it up. He even had a special drawbar built into his piano that would shift the keys of the hammers, so that it would realign it to the black keys for whatever key he wanted. Irving Berlin. Yes. So to me, like I said, it's passion first. The other stuff is the eccentricities of it, you know. But if you want to score a 30-piece band for something, and you don't want to hire somebody, but you want the orchestration on a track, well, you should learn to do it. And the more you do something, the better you get at it. And you start to see other things, too, inside of that you may not have noticed in the emotional part of it. Whereas, like, studying chord structure and things like that, you might go, well, what is happening here? And as you sort of dissect it, you go, oh, you start to realize that not only is it this, but all these other doorways start to show themselves and create a new path, a new way that the music can sound, even if it's rhythmically. It doesn't necessarily even have to be melodically. So I'm like, man, passion first. And Victor Wooten, even the great American bass player, said this. His camp basically has kids trying to make sounds, connect with things that are outside in their environment, and before they're really technically getting involved in all the higher end of learning of music. That says something. He even said in his interview, he goes, well, when a child is learning to speak, we let them make all the kind of sounds they want. We don't come in and go, that's not how you say this. You say it like this. Eventually you might go and they're like 7 or 8, but you're letting them jam. They're jamming verbally. They're just, and they're even imitating you, and we think it's great and we think it's fun. So the same thing to me is music, because music is a language. It's you're speaking through an instrument or your voice when describing an idea. So, yeah, the passion, baby, the passion.
Good answer. I like it. Okay, onward we go. Since I'm the boss and my name happens to be on this studio, we can kind of diverse to different dialogue anytime I feel like it. So, therefore, that means I can also pimp whatever I want on this show. So, there are some people out there that probably do not know of this entity called Black Earth Music and Pottery. Because if they've never heard of you, they've probably never heard of Black Earth Music and Pottery unless they've been in your neck of the woods. So, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. First of all, can you maybe tell the listeners who are unadvised as to how you got partnered up with this pursuit? Explain to them how you got involved with this. Tell them what Black Earth Music and Pottery is all about, where it's located, etc. We want the full skinny.
We are in the full skinny of northern Ontario, just located north of Orangeville in the beautiful old farming community of Melanchthon, Melanchthon, Ontario. We came up to this area because Markham was this when I was a kid, and it got eaten up. And it drove me crazy watching it happen, considering we had 1,500 acres of cattle in a farming field. In the process of not being able to deal with it and fight it and whatever, and the consumption of everything, we moved. And moved here because of its age, its stature. And I'm gigging up in this neck of the woods, traveling through this area many years ago, and it seemed to feel sweet. It seemed to feel like home in a way. It just almost drew us to this sort of area. Kim and I are very into old things. Our house was built in 1866. The addition that was put on it was built in 1877. It's double bricked. It's built like a brick shit house. I mean, it's been here for a long, long time. The area before it was called Melanchthon was settled by Germans, just like German mills turned into Markham. It was originally called Schwarzerb, and if you know your Yiddish background, Schwarzerb basically means black earth. So we felt, as we are, paying homage to the people that settled and built this area by naming the farm after them. Not only do we grow a multitude of vegetables and to sustain ourselves, friends, family, as well as store credits, selling vegetables depending on what's going on from season to season. Our lives in pottery, because Kim is a potter, so she makes cups, bowls, plates, jewelry, everything that you can think of, and me with the music studio, we're just like two artisans that realized what we're doing is different, but it's very similar in many ways. We create and make things with our hands, and we share them with people. So combining those two things, even though my studio's upstairs and Kim's studio's downstairs, we also have a little retail area here where Kim has shelves of tons of stuff. But aside from me recording and teaching out of my own studio, it's a full-on recording studio for anybody to come to, known as Area 51. And I've been recording records here for now almost 8 years for people. So it's sort of like this little art zone. And most recently, we've just built a small barn and at wood kiln. And the wood kiln was graciously, because we couldn't afford to buy all the new brick, donated by another potter friend of ours, Barb Murphy, who had the kiln on her farm, but the farm was being sold, and instead of it being destroyed, she wanted us to have it because she saw what we were doing here, and she appreciated it, and we appreciated what she's done for us. So now we have these firing cycles that happen about 8 times a year, where we have anywhere between 8 to 12 people that come to the farm. Everybody fires in the kiln, and the wood kiln is fired with nothing but wood. It's not electric, it's not gas. That means for 24 hours, people are stoking this kiln to get it to 2,400 degrees. And you go through 2 bush cords of wood. So that's where this all kind of happened, and where we make our music, make our art, grow our food, and it's our headquarters. It's where we talk about everything that we do and live our lives. And that's something that when years ago we met, we always kind of wanted. We always thought, okay, let's try to find something like this. And people are like, wow, you live way up north. It's so far north of Toronto. The reality is, in this day and age, anything north of some of the highways in the greater metropolitan area are $100,000 cheaper. So if you go to try to buy a home in metropolitan Toronto and you're spending $750,000 on a home that has a 12 by 12 lawn, well, you can buy almost a farm for $400,000 up here. So it becomes a personal choice of like, okay, I got to drive a lot, and I've always driven a lot because of what I do, but I also like the peace and the seclusion and knowing that I have that, wide open space to be able to clear my head. I was hatched, born, and raised in an area that was like that. So for me, I love the city. I love people in the city. I love working in the city, but I can't exist there. I don't feel grounded,
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I got a bunch of friends like that, actually. Now, I have so as I understand it, then, your wife is the lady who does the pottery. So I have a request, actually. It's more like a question for you. Actually, it's really a question for her, but she's not here, so maybe you could listen anyway. I was thinking about this earlier today. To those that, most of the time, the people that listen, some of which are, of course, friends of mine to begin with, and you've probably seen this on my wall, my very best friend has stage 4 lung cancer, so he is dying. And so I've been trying very hard. Me too. I've been trying very hard in the last year to kind of immortalize him. So I've found a musician to do a song, and I've done a benefit, and I started a whole support group here in the local hospital for him, and I'm doing a benefit every year. So I keep trying to find ways to immortalize him. And then when I found out about your pottery shop, I thought to myself, I wonder if your wife could make maybe a pottery mold of his hands, let's say, or something. I'm having a painting done of the two of us, so I have, a picture. But I've just been grasping to try to find something, pottery.
Yeah, that's totally. In fact, since she does things for people, and I didn't go down a morbid road, but she does funeral urns for people as well, and for animals. But she also does immortalization plaques with baby kids, like their hands and their feet, like newborns. and people love that. It's something that they want to keep forever. So I don't see why, especially knowing Kim, the kind of person that she is, why she wouldn't want to get involved with something like that. Losing her mother.
We got to get off this, or I'm going to cry.
Well, she lost her mother to multiple myeloma 2 years ago already now. Was fighting it for 5 years, and she was living with her mom in palliative care for, I guess, almost 3 weeks. And that's consequently actually why she also has post-traumatic stress disorder from the whole thing. But to her, that connection point to the spiritual and people that are moving on is very Kim, and she's very attuned to those things. I wouldn't hesitate to say somehow psychic about certain things when it comes to stuff like that. So I guarantee you I could probably say for sure she would. We just have to figure out the logistics on how to do it, how we get the clay to you, how it needs to be rolled out, and you have to send it back to us, or do we come there? Because I'm headed down to the States in February, March, and
we're getting
again
to
in
that,
March a
actually.
couple of times.
Yeah.
We might be able to come down and do it. And then, but the whole thing becomes, where do we fire it? Can you imagine coming across the border with the people at the border, and you've got wet handprints and some clay, and they're like, "What is this?"
I know, that sounds terrible, doesn't it? It just occurred to me because when I was researching it and looking at it, I thought to myself, now there's something I don't have, and I know that some people think that I'm foolish. I'm on this huge campaign right now where I've launched. I said I'm going to take my business. We're going to come up with a research grant. We're going to fund this grant, and then they're going to find this cure for him. And I know that some people think I'm in denial right now, but it's very hard when you love someone very, very much, and
I know,
someone just
and they're
says
going
that you're not going to
through
have
that, and they're where they're at too. That's the other thing, where it's critical mass, and you
it's tough.
You
I mean,
yourself, you feel helpless
I have a
in
hard
some
time.
ways.
Yeah, and I'm still working my way through it. I think it's I think if my son were healthy and I was dealing with one of them at one time, it would be fine. I think it's a double whammy that makes it very difficult because it's ongoing, and it's hard. I'm not ready to let him go. I'm just not anywhere near ready. So we're just not giving up.
How old is he, if you
go.
don't mind me asking?
He's 60 years old. He was a union president, actually, and if you ever see Nicole's name on my Facebook page, Nicole Hamilton is his daughter.
Okay.
And Nicole is his daughter, and she just Mikey, my best friend, he just lost his wife this year to breast cancer a few months ago. Well, it's been 4 months, and I met Nicole for the first time. So, when he goes, she will have lost both of her parents, and I want her to know, we spend time together, and I want her to know that I'm here. I'm not her parent. I'm not looking to replace either of them, but I think it's important. It's tough. It's a very hard dynamic. I think you learn real quickly, and I think that a lot of listeners would agree with this. When you get to your, not even in your 40s. Is it work-related?
Is it work-related, Cindy?
No. He actually used to smoke a long time ago. Then he quit, and then he went to the doctor about a year ago, and he was having back pain. And they said, hey, you have stage 4 lung cancer, just like that. And he didn't tell me. I had to find out from a mutual friend, and then I'm like, you're kidding, right? And I went to him, and I was pissed at him at the time, and I wasn't talking to him, and I said, you don't tell your best friend that you're dying. Right. And it was hard. I cried for the first few days, and I'm still crying, and I know I'm not supposed to talk about it on social media, and I'm not supposed to say how sad it is, but it's really sad.
I know, and that's the thing. I think people, though, do, too, because, I remember some things even with my dad, and I started to think, why didn't I know? But years later, I'm starting to realize in some ways it was his sign of love, because he himself probably couldn't deal with certain things, and how does he explain to his son about what's happening? And there's a lot of things that were like, why, and then later it's like, oh wait, you love me. You know what I mean? It's hard, because even my mom would say we mourn our own loss. The people that we wish were still here with us in those situations and circumstances, it's like it's so hard to let go, because that's the beauty of life. The love and the sort of soliloquy, the lamenting behind it, is that it shows you how potent that your relationship is with that person, that it means something in some way, despite the fact it could have been tumultuous. And for
Definitely.
me personally, instead of looking at it in the negative, it's better even from that perspective psychologically to think of it that way for yourself.
Oh, certainly. And you know, I'm very, very pleased at the fact that, you know, Nicole and I are becoming much closer. We're building a relationship outside of Mikey. We're able to, you know, become good friends, and I'm able to be there for her. And I think that's amazing. Now, granted, it's not great. I mean, I'm pretty pissed off at my best friend, and I'm not talking to him right now. But, you know, loving someone from afar is still loving them from afar, and I'm sure we'll work it out.
Right.
I thought to myself, well, you guys are the pottery expertados here, and I thought, well, let's ask him and see. So we'll have to work that out. I tried to find your wife on Facebook, but either she's not on there or
she doesn't do any
names,
social media other than just Etsy. She just started. But if you go to Black Earth Music and Pottery, the website, then she's there and active on that, along with a whole gallery of different things that she makes, including you'll see the hand and footprints as well too that she does for kids.
Yes, and that's exactly the reason why I brought it up. I know that sometimes, of course, a lot of times that, you know, your promoters and such don't want people bringing up all sorts of other entities, but I'm like, this is a big part of you. It's a big part of Ed Roman.
Well, you know what? That's the thing, though. Why would you want something scripted? You go to, like, some political thing,
right?
And you know the people that are in the audience, that are the interviewers, have been asked to ask those questions, and it makes it all look nice. The reality of it is that life has ups and downs. It has hardships.
Bingo.
It has positivity, shits and giggles. All of those things are what makes. So why shouldn't we talk about it as human beings? It's not like we're being disrespectful and like bitching and chirping about somebody that is relevant. It's like we care about people, so why not talk about it, even if it means it's difficult.
Exactly. And then there's wine too.
That's the way the real shit gets done, man.
Company. Exactly.
That's
Thank
the way
you very
the real
much,
stuff gets
I have
done.
to say. Okay, another good toast there. So let's toast my best friend, Mikey, too. Mikey, and 5 more years of long life. God, I hope so. So, yes, thanks for not... Okay, that was close. I could have cried right there. Onward and upward we go. That's quite all right. One characteristic that I want to share that I cherished about Mr. Roman, which some of you may not know, is his need to contribute back to the community. For example, I noticed that you performed at a function called Food Stock to Stop the Mega Quarry. So maybe just detail that day for us. Let us know kind of what that was all about, why you participated. Plus, will you share some of your skills and smarts with some other organizations in this coming year?
Sure, absolutely. I would be happy to do that, especially when the cause is justified. And in terms of the question about food stock, that's the thing. The watchful eye of the public when it comes to things that are occurring in your own backyard. We live on like I said, the oldest farming community, one of the oldest in Canada up here. There was a situation where a gentleman had come in who many years ago had lived close to this area. And under the auspices, the idea that farmers were struggling, he would come in and buy up the farmland at $2,000 more an acre in order to save the quote-unquote family farm, to keep it in a corporate realm and give the Lays brothers and the McCain brothers a run for their business when it came to potato farming. Well, inside about 3 years, he'd lobbied the provincial and federal government to allow him and warrant the idea of the biggest mega quarry that would be 3 times the depth of Niagara Falls, that would totally violate the water table, plus thousands, I'm talking hundreds of thousands of hectares of land. Now, the townspeople were basically hoodwinked into the idea. He serviced the local mayor of the town, who was also his insurance broker, which meant the mayor couldn't say anything about it, and at the same time, if he released him as a client, he would be disbarred for his insurance service. He very cleverly played a number of people in the area, and people woke up and they went, follow the money trail. So as you follow the money trail, you realize he worked for Exxon. He was down in the Panama Canal. He was using his connections that he thought he was going to export all of this prime limestone that's underneath this land to the Panama Canal, lining the Panama. So what the people did, they got together and said, no, this area is about food and water, and it affects not just us, but every person in greater metropolitan Toronto, because the watershed up here feeds everybody in Toronto. Okay, I don't care who you are, the water cleaned by the limestone that is here. That's one of the properties of limestone, other than being a great drainage tool. So in times of extreme drought, you have good drainage. It holds the water really well. In times of drought, it actually drains the water really well. So the land is never really suffering. So it seems asinine, asshat, to dig that up and not use it for food when it's just going to cushion somebody else's pocketbook. 30,000 people got together in a forest on a field locally up here, Dale Rutledge's farm, and we protested it. And because of it, we stopped it. We had music,
Wow.
artisans, chefs, 100 different chefs, all creating different types of things, culinary cuisines, pop-in-your-mouth kind of food stuff, all made in this area, and people that are prospering and living off the land to prove our point. And consequently, we stopped it. We stopped it. The province pulled the plug on it. There's a moratorium on what's going on right now. And he sold to somebody else. He got out of it. But now somebody else is in control of it, and now they're looking at the water. So it's never, it's the constant gardener. We're always dealing and looking at things, because that's even what's going on with the wind turbines here. There's a multitude of things where it's provincial and federal government policies are being, fudged in order to make these corporate things work. And I know it sounds like, Ed's a conspiratorial fact. No, it has nothing to do with that. Any logical, conscious thinking human being can look at the information in a multitude of ways and go, you know what, it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it is a duck. So I was proud that they asked me, along with Jeremy Taggart from My Mother Earth and a bunch of other, I got to play and just show my support for it. And I'm so passionate about food. It was like, yes, I'm involved.
Of course.
And I felt like it's another victory for the people. We're paying attention to what's going on.
Of course. Do you happen to have side charities or particular charities that you'd like to work with and lend your music to?
I love the Cancer Society and MS Society, and one of those reasons too is because my dad had MS and fought it for 21 years before he passed away, and my mom and two cousins, all are cancer survivors. Wow. And also the Diabetes Foundation as well too is a big supporter. I'm a big supporter of, just because the number of people in my family, every other generation, 5 or 6 of them have been affected by it or have died. So those are our 3 big organizations that I'm very attuned to, but I'm also very attuned to the idea that, you know what, I'm pleased, anybody that's listening out there, and Cindy, I don't mean this in a condescending way, but one of the things I see, and it ties into what we're talking about, is that people are always looking for a cure. And everybody wants a cure. And in some cases, they need it. I've seen the medical industry and the situation with my mom's case or my own family help them. The reason my mom's alive today is because of what happened with her doctors in the hospitals here. Okay? And same thing even with my dad's existence and his prolonged life because of him paying attention to his health and doctors and other stuff. Nobody, other than grassroots people, are talking about the cause. The cause is what is the problem. This cure comes from the cause, and it's a result of figuring out what the cause is. So when I see people going to a grocery store and they're buying peppers, lettuce, tomatoes, whatever it is, and I look at them myself and I pick them up and I go, that came from 1,000 miles away. This came from 2,000 miles away. And they're all genetically modified foods, because any SKU number you read on a piece of fruit or vegetable that begins with a 3 or 4, it's a 4-digit number, all genetically modified and heavily sprayed. So when you're eating that and consuming that, and then you look at the parallel statistics that run hand in hand with people's increase in gastrointestinal problems, increases in cancer, all of those are almost embark at the exact same time that all this food has started to enter our mainstream. And most people don't know. There's one girl you should have on your show, Sin. Her name is Rochelle Parent. I'm a friend with her, and I'm always sharing her book. She's a 15-year-old girl who's going out and actually has the balls to go and say, I want to meet with the Minister of Health, Sheila Ambrose. I want to talk to her as a person in the public, because I have the right to do that as a person.
Right.
To say, why is our food not labeled genetically modified? You can't fight those corporations. So her idea, it's very smart, and other people have been talking about it, is give the packaging, the labeling, so people know, hey, this thing about GMO is a bad thing. Maybe I can vote with my dollar. That's what many people want. So if many people want it, but the ministry is ignoring it, then I ask you in the public, why are we electing these people? I would have more faith in somebody that's wearing a quote-unquote flannel red jacket that works in a garden that smokes a pipe than I would somebody that came out of an Ivy League school that was groomed by a corporation that was a governor and is now running the country. I don't understand why people are so tied into the Hollywood aspect of what politics is and what it represents.
Right.
Because they're always being promised, we're going to do this. My dad here, going back again, we're full circle, he never promised anybody anything. He said to me, you promise somebody something, you got to come good on it. And if you don't know you can come on good on it, then don't promise it. So he would say, I'm never going to promise you anything. In his political speeches, I can only do the best job I can. And I will tell you what's going on while I'm doing it so that people aren't left in the dark. Everybody's always talking about transparency. Where does the public see transparency other than the insanity and the innateness of what comes out of the main pipe most of the time? And what does it do? It confuses people, leaves people arguing, all of those things. It's all tied hand in hand into the same thing. So to me, when I get involved in an organization, I get the privy to have a conversation with somebody on a higher end about what those things are, I do it. Even when I'm on a stage and I'm playing at the Magna Center, I'll say, think about where your food comes from. Who grew it? Do you want to consume it? It makes you, I'm always a proponent because I'm trying to get people to think about it, not just blatantly accept it.
Wow. I got to have this girl on my show, don't I?
Yes, you do. She's an amazing person and well worth, in this day and age, in terms of the subject matter, the kind of person you would want, because she's so articulate and she's smart and she's doing it.
I got no issue with that whatsoever. I like that, and I do like expanding out. I know people like to listen to celebrity interviews or, individuals that are out and about and doing all sorts of this, that, and the other thing according to what the media tells you. But I find great excitement in the littlest of places, and I always take tips like that because I always think that somebody extraordinary will come out of the woodwork, and I'm like, oh, great, I get to talk about this, and I get to expose an issue that doesn't get as much exposure as it needs. So that's very exciting to me, actually. The one
question
I forgot to ask you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, dear. No, go ahead.
No, and that's the thing. Big things have small beginnings, right?
Bingo. Thank you very much. I would have to say that. Now, the one thing that I forgot to ask you about, because we had touched upon dyslexia earlier, and obviously, of course, to those that don't know, as I mentioned before, you are obviously, you experience dyslexia as well. My question is, has it ever been any form of hardship as it relates to either creating or reading music? Is it less challenging now because you're older and you've had more time to acclimate to it? Maybe just touch on that a little bit.
It becomes a trust issue with myself. If I'm writing and I'm doing an interview and Stove has sent me something and I'm typing or doing what I'm doing, I might go, honey, how do you spell, and she'd be like, no, you got it. And I'd be like, oh, did I? And yeah. And she'd be like, yeah. And so it becomes me more or less justifying it in my own mind and being confident about it. And when I am highly confident about it, it seems to be less of an issue. But it was somebody, a friend of mine a while back that said, Roman, I wish you'd, like when I was 16, I wish you'd stop talking about, like, your dyslexia is a problem, because as far as I know, you seem to be one of the most articulate, artistic persons I know, so I don't see you having a problem. And at the time, I was like, I kind of took it to heart at 16, like, what the fuck, talking about? But at the same time, it hit me later that, wait a minute, I am doing this to myself because of the repetitious behavior of others who have told me that. And as soon as I stopped believing that, I was like, this is my path. This is my way. This is what I should be doing. And before you knew it, I found happiness because of it.
Right. I agree. It took me a long time to embrace that. I think anytime somebody finds out, especially if you're out in the crowds and people notice you're a public figure or you're out there, people, I've always been very forthcoming about the fact that I've been bipolar for a long time. And I think, in my field, it helps a great deal to be creative and have a mind racing all the time. You almost need to have that for the type of thing that I do. But some people I know, as I'm sure you come across, sometimes they look at you as having some form of a disability or some form of an issue that you can't overcome. And it's unfortunate. I think that, the moment that I embraced it and said, okay, well, I'm kind of fucked up and this is how it is, I think once you get beyond that,
I see that as an excitement for life. People say it's that, or, you're ADD, like people told me I was ADD when I was a kid or whatever, and put them on Ritalin. My mom's like, no, you're not going to do this. So to me, when people say that or they look at you, to me, I'm thinking about it the other way. where it's like I think your conditioning has promoted the idea so much that it hasn't allowed you the license anymore to feel those ways. Even with crying or laughing out loud in a crowd, and people are like, are they crazy? You could just be having a humorous thought, and you decide to chortle to yourself. But now there's a commercial for some pharmaceutical that says, if you're there thinking strange thoughts and laughing out loud, it may be an uncomfortable sign of such and such. And I'm thinking to myself, no, the person is thinking of a humorous anecdote, so they're laughing on the subway. It has nothing to do with that. And that's what's crazy is that even with commerciality and television and them, they sell these ideas to people like it's a reality, and before you know it, it's a condition. I get it.
Right.
People have issues. They struggle with things. But let's not keep calling them wrong. We ourselves, and as being a teacher for so many years and having bad teachers and some good teachers realize, wait a minute, nobody learns the same way. Nobody learns at the same speed, nor do they want to retain the information the same way. So it behooves us as teachers to figure out what those things are. And to tell you the truth, if you do that consciously as a teacher, you start to become better as a teacher because you realize I have to come at this at multiple ways. And how do I creatively come at it so it sticks in some way? Because I don't want a kid leaving my class not knowing, even if the first 5 or 10 minutes of the class is through some exploration or explanation of a situation, if the next 20 minutes or half an hour is talking about making sure they get it, even that small bit of information, I'd rather do that than blurt out a whole bunch of stuff that nobody gets and then they walk out not knowing. It doesn't make sense.
Perfect. No, I agree with you 100%, definitely. I do. Okay, now we get to talk about how fabulous you are some more, because now I got a bunch of stuff here I'm all excited about. Like, he's not fabulous enough already, right? I mean, this has probably got to be one of the longer interviews I've done. I mean, I'm not keeping you from anything, am I?
No, I'm here writing today, and I've got a bunch of other things to do later this evening, but I'm cool.
Okay, good. So neither one of us has a time constraint right now. So good. We're drinking wine and we're talking, and this is a good thing. We're going to talk a bit about your recording resume because obviously some people may not know exactly what you've done CD-wise. So I'm going to mention a couple of different projects you've done. CDs, namely Are You Okay?, Oracles and Ice Cream, and, of course, the most recent, which is Letters from High Latitudes. Some of your sample songs, which I had to say these because I just laughed when I saw this. I'm like, Pawn Shop, Ghetto Blaster, and Caveman Wednesday. So this is the first question I want to ask you about this. And this is a serious question. Have you ever yourself feared that individuals either in the industry or, of course, fans of yours would struggle to take you seriously? Because, honestly, if I'm walking in a store and I see this guy and he does this song called Pawn Shop Ghetto Blaster, I'm laughing my ass off. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I mean, does that ever kind of concern you? Like, oh, my God, they're going to think I'm some kind of a clown and they're not going to take me seriously. You know what I mean?
It used to, because I used to think when I heard something like that, even in the name under the project calling it Special Ed and the Musically Challenged, I mean, I was in special education class, but people would say, that sounds so self-deprecating, or what the hell's that title about that song about? Or I used to think, well, maybe I should be worried about it. But now as I've gotten older, I realize that no, and even then when I was doing it, that's the thing about the light of discovery, is that most times people don't understand something when it has, and I'm not trying to say I've created anything new, but the reality of it is that it is in a way because people don't understand it. And it doesn't mean that it's bad or it's good, but what it means is that it requires some effort on your part to listen to it, to look at it, to listen to what I might be saying. It might not be direct, it might be metaphorical, but the point is that, you know, to me, the experience, and when it happens and you feel that feeling behind creation, that to me is the exclamation point that says it's right. So if somebody in the industry comes to me and says, well, I can't fit this in any category, and that's been the true to formness in everything that I've done, because you listen to my records, there's a jazz tune, there's a funk piece, there's a folk number, there's a rock number, I grew up listening to people that offered that kind of diversity in their music. Why should it be any different today? And I understand people need to put things in boxes and classify them, but to me, it's also like, well, no, it's just the originality of what it is. It's just music. Mingus would say the same thing. Miles Davis would say the same thing. Any of the great artisans of yesteryear would just go, it's music. And it's current, so it might be popular, it might be mainstream, whatever it is. But to me, there's also something in the title where if you say to me, what the hell is that? To me, I've got your attention.
Right.
Because if they're wondering and almost in a state of like, what the... that will pull you in. And in some way, maybe the humor behind it, because people need humor in their lives, will also turn on something in your head and go, I want to listen to this track. And a lot of times, like if a Caveman Wednesdays almost is a song really about me. And the justification of ideas and how you feel about them and whether or not you decide you want to share them with people and how it comes to you. You know, in the song it even says, you know, too much confusion gives her no rest. I'm talking about Mother Nature and the fact that you nurture from this breast of stuff, but then you abuse it in some kind of a way. I don't want to do that. And what is that true, pure of heart, you know, Kubrickian moment of 2001 where the ape sees the monolith and figures there's something new. I don't want it to be violent. I want it to be something creative and beautiful. So that's even with that, and you hear the title, it's like, what the hell is this all about? Even the track is dark horn parts, duh. It sounds like something out of a menacing, you know, movie in Godzilla with all these brass horns off the top of the track, right? But to me, that's also part of life. Even the most beautiful things are deadly. And some of the most deadliest things can save your life.
Very well put. I like that. You know, I one of the things that I thought about in going through and writing this interview, I said to myself, all right, let's ask him the most direct question, because I've been trying to figure this out for a while now about you. Is it true that levity is a means of medicine for Ed Willman?
Always has been. It's my defense mechanism.
That's what I thought.
You know, as a chubby kid, you know, you didn't fit in always that way, and it's funny, it's your own, once again, your own vision of yourself as to how you feel about yourself and certain things that punctuate those moments that you just keep letting rattle around in your head. That was okay, well, if you're going to say I'm this, then I'm a steamroller, and I grab somebody and roll over them, and they laugh and giggle, and so do I at the age of 7. But it's funny now, you run into high school people. I met up with an old girlfriend of mine, Ildi Takak, from high school, and she said, you know, I had such a crush on you in grade school. And I was like, what? And in high school, and I was like, I had a crush on you, but I never told you. These things that you figure out as an adult, like, you know, what I know now, it's alarming because it amplifies stuff about the things that you thought even then about yourself in a way that makes you go, hey, wait a minute, it's okay. It's all part of the experience. It's all part of growing. And humor was that for me. I was the guy telling jokes all the time at parties, or, you know, it's getting into some kind of a debate with a teacher in the classroom, and the kids just loved that. And somehow some sarcastic remark would, you know, it turn into an argument, and then I have to go explain myself at the principal's office because I was trying to, you know, make a point of something, you know, but at the same time you're like, you're being scolded for it even though you know it's wrong.
Right. I get you. I kind of figured that this whole time, and I thought to myself, all right, obviously there's a reason for that, like Steele Scotia and some of the other people I've had on my show. I'm like, sometimes you just watch a person's behavior to try to figure out why they do what they do or why they kind of formulate things the way that they do. So hence the question, obviously. I found it interesting.
Yeah, it was like, you know, I can think of a situation, too. It's like we had this rule where, because it was a Catholic school with the uniform, if you came to class with your jacket, you got a detention. If you came to class late, you got a detention. Yeah, if you came to class late, you got a detention. If you were trying to even loosen your tie while you were getting on the bus, you got a detention. So that's the kind of me, the dissident, you know, truth seeker in that environment doesn't really work out well. But I said, it was like, the teacher, I'm there on time with my jacket. He goes, go, you got a detention. Our bus was continually late. We were always the country run, coming in 15 minutes after the bill. I called him an asshat. I did one of those asshat things. The whole class started to giggle. I get it. I'm a 15, 16-year-old kid saying something I shouldn't to the teacher. But the point I made to the vice principal was, look, Alan, I said to him, how am I supposed to get to class when the bus is always rationalizing with them? I mean, somehow adults in those positions, because they're in those positions, have ego trips, and they have a hard time rationalizing with younger people. I've learned from my own students, even in those situations where it's like, wait a minute, Ed, you're flying off the handle, and we need to, talk a little bit more. I listen to my students because I realize I'm so passionate about what I do that I can't help but fly off the handle about it sometimes. For me, it's also one of those things that was illustrative for me as a young person, with whether it was family or people that came over, seeing that it's not bipolar, take a pill for it. It's people getting passionate about what they care about.
And I like that. I like the fact that, and I'm the same way too, when I get real passionate about something that I love so much, just really going at it 150%, which I absolutely love. One of the things that I noted that I'm sure people don't know is that on one of the CDs, I can't believe it, 22 tracks is a big bundle of business, period, as it relates to any musician. 22 songs is just amazing to me. I'm just curious to ask you, what's the approximate time to take as far as creation and then cutting all these songs? Is this a huge endeavor? Because, like I said, to me, that's a lot of songs on one CD.
It is, and you know what? That's the thing. I think it's so hard. It's a wonderful question, Cindy, but I think all artists are always creating in every way. And for me, I'm the kind of person that sees things coming together in some sort of like a photographic way, especially with the stories. So for almost 3 years, writing, especially a lot of the gypsy stuff or the jazz stuff, those things take a while to procure. Sure. You need to think about the arrangement. The melody comes in a very playful way sometimes, so chord structure needs to. But they all start pulling you down this path. Sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it takes a long time. But when I see all that kind of in an envelope, like right now I'm maybe working on 45, 50 different songs. And in that process, I'm already starting to see where the next 14 of those bunch of songs are going to work into a new record. And it has to do with the emotion behind that they're all creating, and at the same time, the librettos, the stories, what's being talked about. That album ended up being 22 songs because I originally wanted to separate the record amongst this instrumental half, all instrumental music, and vocal. Because it wasn't I was trying to show it, but it was because somehow the melodies and everything that was being talked about in the stylized approach to the instrumentation, banjo, upright bass, drums, electric guitar, all of it sort of worked together in a way. And I went, okay, this is it. And it was also like, for me at that time too, the band had come to sort of a demise with people that I was playing with. So it was this cathartic release for me by saying, hey, I'm still here, I'm kicking. I'm alive, and I feel good about it. And here's all the new stuff that I've been working on. Some of it came out the night before. Like I had planned to do something completely different in the studio, and then it's like, oh, yeah, my Mike Jack came in, and I was working on The Spirit of Radio by Rush with a banjo, and he goes, that sounds so cool. So for the afternoon, we ended up like recording everything over the course of that day and into the evening, and then I sought out Anthem Records and talked to Alex Lifeson from Rush, and we met and had dinner, and he gave me permission to record on the record, and later I took him a disc, and he was so happy to get it, and I just felt so connected to what I was doing at that time. And the title itself, Oracles and Ice Cream, was for me a way to say, look, my oracles are artisans. They are the Oracle of Delphi over the fissure in the earth, inhaling the methane gas that people come to have their prophecies told, their futures predicted. To me, art does that. It's a reflection of who we are at this moment in time. And to me, the ice cream, when you're creating, that's the enjoyment. It's not just for yourself, like, lick psych. It's like, I want to give a scoop to everybody. So that's the enjoyment process. The oracle is telling you. To me, a lot of times the process of writing, even in a melodic way, and lyrically, like I said, you're following something. It's almost like somebody's leading you verbally. The words are leading you. They're taunting you to say things and express stuff, release things about yourself, about situations that you know in some kind of a way. So it's all so mystical to me in a way. Even when I met Dee Dee Sharp, when we were down in South Carolina a little while ago, and she's a gospel singer. Most people in the U.S. might know who she is, and she's amazing what she does. She said the first thing when I handed her a record, because I really wanted her to have one, was she said, which tunes are these are spiritual? And I just had to look at her and smiled, and I said, Dee Dee, to me they're all spiritual. They all have some sort of a connection to my existence and the people around me and the time that we live in. So, I'm only trying to be that. To me, it's like, Herbie Hancock once wrote on the back of Jaco Pastorius' first record, the definition of an artist is one who has the ability to fuse their life with the rhythm of the times. And sometimes those are beautiful moments, and sometimes they're evasive.
Well put. Very well put. Next question. Oh, my gosh, you were so entertaining. I love this. Would you say that you're either more proficient or more of a powerful player, let's say, now as compared to if we go back like 5 years ago?
Definitely now, and I think for me, thanks Oscar Peterson, I'm quoting Oscar again, he never ceases to amaze me. I'm never going to stop learning, Cindy, until the day I die. I will be a better player tomorrow if I want to be, and the only thing that's stopping me is me. And so I will say this, that even over 25 years of being a teacher, that branching out into multiple instruments that show me more about myself is also what's accelerated my growth, because you can get stagnant sometimes on your own instrument, and you get into a lock, but there was a guy named Kenny Werner, American piano player, and he wrote a book called Effortless Mastery. And one of the exercises in the book was to not play your instrument for 2 and 3 weeks at a time, and really focus on not doing it. And some people do that. They'll go a day or two and they won't play. But then there'll be 5 days of playing or 4 days of playing, or because you're working and teaching, you're playing all the time. But taking that time off does two things. One, it gives you the break from your own mind and your own, shit hat that you've got going on. And at the same time, it reimpregnates and invigorates your mind, and that same feeling that he tries to recollect on, that when you were a kid and you first heard music, not just the instrument, but the sound of it, the way that it made you feel, those things start to come back to you in a way because of the lament of being away from it for a period of time. So I think it's healthy to do both. That's why I'm a bit of a polymath. I go out to the garden for 2 hours, and I'm farting around doing whatever I'm doing, but then I know that my mind's turning, and I'll come in, have a shower, pick up the guitar, and start thinking about and writing about what I was thinking about. So those things activate another part of my mind in a completely different way. And the same thing happens if I sit down at a drum kit or the Hammond or a piano or another guitar or a bass. It's showing me something different. In fact, I actually like the struggle, because inside of that struggle, it does exactly what I'm saying. It gives you that infantile approach, which doesn't make you feel like so intellectual about the process and that you're lost in it, thinking about, I have to be this, when really it is that already. You just have to relax, listen, and enjoy.
Very well put. Now, if I were to ask you, and I know this is a tough question, from young on to this point, can you tell me what your absolute favorite song is of yours?
That I've written, or that it's somebody else has written?
That you've written.
Well, the tune on the last record, the last track on Letters from High Latitudes, is a song called I Found God. And it talks about, for me, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, it's more of an epitaph song for me. And I'm trying to really outline the existence, the interdependence between all living things, and that what we do to ourselves, we do to our surroundings, and vice versa. And to me, the last line in the tune says, I found God, you're standing on it. It's been right beneath your shoes, and it's been leaving subtle clues. I feel it so complete. It came upon a vision. I leave you my admissions. So that, to me, has a lot of potency in this day and age, especially even when you talk to a lot of people in your own surroundings that are dealing with so many problems and so many situations and are caught up in it, but somehow know not how to release themselves from it and just realize what's going on around them, that it's all right beneath your feet, from the love that you need to the things that you need to eat to the things you need to express. So that has a lot of gravity to me right now, that song. But then again, you know, in that same token, with a lot of the new songs that I'm writing, I'm trying to pay, in some sense, an homage to even the people in the last year that have been greatly helping me in a sort of metaphorical way. So, you know, without trying to lose it here and start crying all over the floor, music to me is like one of those where it's like, if you really get me into it like you are, Sin, you're going to see the emotional side of who Ed Roman really is, because it's tied far more into just money and chicks for me. It's about, you know,
oh my gosh,
how I live my existence.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Somebody I had on my show who stayed very dear to me, a young boy actually. He's from the UK, and I've interviewed him. I found him, and then I interviewed him 3 different times. He's a young boy. He's like 22, 23. He's like my son's age. And he said the most wonderful thing last night. He said, you know, you brought me on a show and you had belief in me the moment you met me, and you kept true to your belief. And he asked me last night if he is Michael Stover. And my jaw just dropped. I thought, holy shit. My job was to make you look good and to believe in you, which I still do to this day. And one of the things that you will learn if you decide to stay my friend is I use my friends for all sorts of things. Any means, any project, anything that I can do, I pull my friends in because I keep my friends very close to me. So it means a great deal, I think. Music can be very powerful, and the fact that people resonate such a passion for it and being involved in it. I'm just so pleased and so proud that a good deal of time I interview musicians. I think you guys carry such a propensity for passion that some other occupations lack, and I think it's very true in that regard.
Well, thank you, Cindy. And what he said is very true to form. I mean, that you know, whether we call it using our friends for things, I mean, what are friends for? You know, and people are like, well, Facebook is such a fallacy and a folly, and people aren't really friends. I've met a lot of really amazing people, and have stuck. You know, they've stuck by me, whether I've been in a funk or, you know, I've been in a good space appreciating what's been going on.
Right.
To me, that's okay, because everybody is moving forward in some direction, trying to figure things out. I like that, the connection with meeting people. It's one of the most exciting things, other than when you're out playing, is talking to people. Because it's all fodder for great things in your own life, or things you want to accept or adopt, or things you go, oh my God, I can't believe that. I don't know if I could do that. Or it's so potent. And that's the irony of social media, is that we tend to talk about these things that are over the top, whether they be humorous or crazy or exasperating. But sometimes when people are reaching out, that's where you really start to see people that have some sense of empathy for just the human condition, because that's one of the things that's alarming for me, is that when somebody has some sense of sympathy, and I'm not talking about just kind of blurting over everything all the time, but just extend a hand, a kind word, an emoticon of pleasure that just leads, or even a phone call. You know, like, hey, can you call me now? Sure. What do you want to talk about? Just alleviating that kind of anxiety is so important. And we spend little to no time doing it. My phone in my home, it's messed. Hardly ever rings anymore. Unless it's my mom unless she's going to be 80, or my sister, she's calling to say hey or whatever. But everything else in our existence, other than telemarketers, is all online. In less than 10 years of our lives. And I think I like getting on the horn and talk. I like hearing emotion,
I know. I like hearing voices. Exactly.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, you know what? It's midnight. I can't sleep. Or I'm drunk, or I'm this. Well, that's a bad example, because I do drunk text.
Right.
I've been known to drunk text. But you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to reach out and, like, you know what? I'm a mess right now, and I need someone to talk to, and I don't want to do a Facebook damn chat, because I do Facebook chat. But it happens too often. I'm like, it's too distant. You know, you need to hear a voice. You need to connect one with the other. And I do think that there is a lot of separation nowadays. Even this, like, you're calling me and we're doing this interview right now. This is more personal to me. Sure, I could email you a bunch of questions, but that really doesn't tell me shit about who you are. I can't hear your voice. I don't hear your
and we're not having this interplay. That's the other thing. Even like as a musician today, look, I love Randy Bachman on BTO and the Guess Who and everything. And I still highly respect Randy. Randy's doing commercials right now for the CBC, where people get to log on and from different clubs, the CBC itself, to watch music, because nobody is actively participating in club life, going out the way they did 20 years ago. That's a detriment to the musical situation. And think of it, for the same reason inside of the conversation, it's pretty weird as a musician just playing to a camera and people logging on. Now, you can be passionate, you can be expressive, all of those things that go hand in hand with being an artist. But look, when you're in a room of people, whether it's 5 or 500, 5,000, there's a symbiotic relation. There's things that happen, that occur, that as a musician or the artist you pay attention to, that then becomes incorporated maybe into something that happens into the moment. That, like you're talking about, is the excitement behind the moment and the experience. It's pretty stale and clinical when it's all text.
Correct. I would agree with you, definitely. Now I'm going to give you like 35 seconds to take a drink of wine because you've been talking, and I'm going to tell our listening audience, I want to alert the audience of what I call your pinnacle of prestige. So I'm going to read off this huge amount of accolades that he has that I don't. So this is one of the reasons why I was so nervous to do this interview today, because listen to this, folks. He has been number 1 on Reverb Nation, and that's in Orangeville, Canada. He's had the number 1 single on CMG Global Review hit list for the Top 20 chart. In 2014, he was in the Top 100 of No Depression's Best Albums. He's been nominated by the New Music Awards and the Artists Music Guild. He won Adult Contemporary, if I could talk today, Artist of the Year. He's also been featured in Bass Player magazine. Wow. I can't even name half of those accolades. I've not even gotten anything close to that. And then they wonder why I'm so nervous talking to him. A couple questions regarding this. First off, I know it sounds like a dumb question, but again, I'm not from Canada. How do these fare in the States? When I mean that parallel to our charts, like for instance, when you live in the United States, of course, we have our top 20 charts and things like that. So is it somewhat parallel to how we do things here in the States as far as like those charts and awards and things that I mentioned? Does that make sense?
Diametrically opposed. In fact, without sounding crass to all my Canadian friends and family and everybody that's here, I would say that Canadian art culture is dying or on the verge of death.
Oh, no.
And this is why many Canadians are going south of the border, because America has always had that subtle roots culture that's even growing in strength and manifesting in new ways now. But the attention to all of that has been so much greater. It seems like even before, where we have to go other places to get recognition before our own country does the same thing. So, for instance, I can go down and play in Kentucky at the Paramount Theater. There's 2,000 people singing and clapping my song and singing along to the song, where I'll play 2 shows in the city of Toronto, not back to back, but front of the summer and the back of the summer. We'd be lucky if 10 people come to the show.
Okay.
And that's because most people don't want to leave home. And or at the same time, the other thing is that Canadian culture, as far as the industry goes, is always trying to play it safe. They're very afraid to take chances. They're afraid to stick their necks out and go, let's try to work at this together. We're talking about Mike Stover. He didn't know me a year ago, but as we talked and we started to figure things out, we realized, look, we can do some really amazing things together. And slowly but surely, that's what's been happening. Whereas a Canadian industry, like somebody here might go, well, unless you're like playing to 150,000 people and you're selling X amount of CDs there, we don't want to work with you. So that's what I mean. Unless it's safe, they don't want to take the chance. And because of that, what happens is that undercurrent culture of the average, I'm going to this open mic night, guess who's playing at this local club on Thursday, that goes away because it's not fostered in any way by the industry, even on a small level. So it's either a normal or nothing here. So if it's a huge show that's playing at the ACC, Air Canada Centre, to 25,000 people, the highway's packed, the radio's going, the show's happening, da-da-da-da-da. But you'd be lucky as an incredible musician. And I'm not talking about myself. I can mention people like Kevin Bright. The list is really endless. The point being is that you think these people have won Grammys playing with Norah Jones, all these. They don't know who Kevin Bright is. This country doesn't support those kinds of things unless those artists support themselves. So that's why I'm alarmed by it.
But at the same time, when you ask me a wonderful question like that, I'm going to talk about it despite the fact that it bothers me. And you know what?
Sure.
To tell you the truth, Canadians listening, they should be bothered by it. It behooves them as a culture to participate in this, because it's artisans everywhere around the world that create these moments, these pods, these little things for us to reflect on. That's why we have the Louvre in France, so people can go to look at all the great works of history. And some of those works were written during tumultuous times. But here we can look at them now as some masterpieces that they are. They weren't then. When my mom talks about going to see Buddy Rich or Dizzy Gillespie when she was in high school, they were nobodies almost then. But now I talk about my mom's like, whoa, I saw him at the Brass Rail. There was only 50 people there in Toronto. I'm like, what? You know, like I think to myself, that's the same thing in the secular nature of it. But the difference is that if people don't participate in it, how is it supposed to stay alive?
I agree with you 150%. And that was part of the reason.
And musicians are typical, you know, and it's an argument there too. Sorry, Sin, is of bitching about the fact that how much you're making, or can you work, or it's difficult. But I think that's the thing about artists, is that we're also stubborn in a good way, because we're not ready to turn over and just say no, even if it ends up becoming something that is for us. This one guy said to me, like you said, what crazy titles of your song. Ed, why don't you just write a huge pop tune and then you can make a whole bunch of money and then you'll be set. And I said to him, I said, well, you know what, because I'd rather be lying on my deathbed and knowing that I wrote 2,000 amazing songs for myself for that reason, not just because I wanted to make money. Money comes and it goes.
Right.
And it's really irrelevant in life. What matters is our connections to life and the people that are around it.
I agree 150%. And that's a lot of the reason why, like I said, I have very dear friends that live in Canada. And so I say to myself, well, that's part of the reason I created my third radio show, is because I want to expose only Canadians.
Where are they?
Well, that's just it. That's a good question. I've been out all over the place. Like, if you're an actor, if you're, you know, a musician, if you're an artist, if you're this, come and approach me. I want to have somebody who's Canadian come on this show. You know what I mean?
Well, hey,
and it is somewhat
Rachel
disheartening.
Parent's a good. You should have Kevin Bright on your show. He's another amazing guitarist. But like I said,
send them,
the guy
bring
won
them all. Tell
five
everybody.
Grammys on the road with Norah Jones. If that doesn't have some sense of clout. He played on the Oracles and Ice Cream record. I felt like Kevin, he's my friend and everything, but I felt like intimidated, and I just went to myself, well, it's Kevin. He wants to do this. I feel lucky and privileged that he's playing on the record, but at the same time, I'm like, well, wait a minute. And it's Mike Jack, if he's listening, he'll say, everybody's just a person. They're just people, and our own insecurities about what the ego might have, you know, dictates that, oh, it's going to be strange, it's going to be weird, I'm going to be uncomfortable, they're going to be uncomfortable. We're all just people. So, you know, when you say that, it's even the same thing about me. Sin, you're my friend. I've known you a lot longer than we've done this interview. And we've gone through things together online, helped each other out in a multiples of ways. But look, we're just people. And we're trying to say something and do something good to help people.
Of course, it's kind of a lie, because you're not just a regular person. You're extraordinary. But we'll get to that.
I'm Slovak, baby.
Oh, my God. Now, before I forget, remind people, because, of course, I know you had a posting on your page about this. If individuals want to vote for either yourself or Michael Stover as it relates to National Universe Awards, tell people how they can do that, because that's an important thing, and that just started, correct?
Absolutely. The National Universe Awards are huge. They're international, obviously. It's an extreme accolade to get, and just the connections, obviously, as most people know, and just to the circles of people and consorting with Nashvillians is a big deal. As far as a resume builder, all of those things. To me, like, I love getting awards, but to me it's about working. So if it means me working more, then I'm really happy about it. All you need to do is go to NashvilleUniverseAwards.com. There's a link there that you can follow there for all the nominees for 2015, including MTS and Mike Stover and everybody that's at MTS, whether it's Jiggly, Doug Briney, everybody's kind of there. Right. Go into the category, you click on the person's name, and before you know it, you've already voted. It's very simple, very easy, and it takes little to no time. And we're almost at the closing date for that portion of the sort of category voting, because it's also like the AMG, where 1/5 to 2/5 of it is based on popularity via the public, but the other, which is nice, which makes you feel good, is a guild of people that are looking at your work in a different way other than just how much money you made. I had to deal with this with the Junos. Like, here's the thing. If you've made X amount of money in Canada, that's what will probably incline a Juno into your resume. But here, if you haven't made a ton of sales and it's all online, you may not get an award. Junos is strictly based on popularity and money. That's why it's an honor when you bring those guilds up in the States. Winning an award from them is huge because it's not just about that. It's your contribution to culture. And I love that. I get off on that.
Wonderful. And then this way then, I think I voted already, and if not, I'll make sure I take care of that later today. Now, we only have 2 more things to cover, and you're finally rid of me. Wow. We're on the 2-hour mark. We're doing well.
It's so much fun talking to you.
I know.
You're a great host.
It's like so exciting. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't even seem like it's been 2 hours, right? And this interview is so out of the norm. First of all, I never drink in the middle of the afternoon. This never happens because I'm like,
oh, come on, I do
afraid.
Sometimes, Sunday afternoons,
Honest?
Christmas, New Year's.
Okay, yes, but this isn't a special
Coffee
occasion.
and
The thing is, I'm like,
mimosa.
I know. I'm trying to be like really serious and professional, and that's hard to do when you start drinking, and I haven't drank for 2 weeks. So now I'm like, we're going to be eating after this interview. Thanks a lot, Ed. So now we're going to talk about the personal Ed Roman for a moment. I'm going to share with you folks a few things that I know about Ed. Like, for instance, he mentioned earlier, of course, Jimi Hendrix. So he has done a journey to visit the gravestone of Jimi Hendrix. I've seen a photo of that.
Wow, Cindy,
I know
really
for a
have
fact.
Homework.
Oh, trust me, it gets better. I've seen a photo of him wearing almost nothing but a sock. That was a little awkward. But he actually was holding his guitar, and there was this long tube thing that we won't get into. Awkward. He enjoys some of the following musicians that I do, which are some of my favorites, which is Diana Krall, which I'm a huge fan of, The Roots, huge fan of Jimmy Fallon, been trying to get him on my show for forever. Obviously, we already know that he's a gardener. Did you also know, and this I did my research, and it better be right, that you once filmed your own Facebook movie? Is that correct?
Sorry, I once did what? My own?
Apparently, you once filmed your own Facebook movie.
Filmed my own Facebook movie?
Yeah, something about your own
work?
Facebook movie. I don't know. You tell me. According to my research, apparently you did that. Is that a faux pas? Is that not correct? I
don't know because I'm trying to figure out the connection to it
know.
because I've done a lot of things on Facebook and I'm always posting something about something and doing little video clips.
When you're off this interview, you need to go look and see if you actually did a Facebook
I'm going to have
movie,
to. Are you mean like
the
year in like the year in retrospect?
Yes. Something along those lines, but it was like a Facebook sort of thing. It was like a little movie.
Facebook does those. They set those up for people, and what they do is they go through all the nice, happy pictures, and they do your thing for you, just like the photo thing. But yeah.
So there's a couple personal questions that I have to ask you.
Okay.
First of all, I have no damn idea why somebody like you, because people tell me this all the time, and then I laugh at them because I'm like, you're full of shit, because I would never expect this. But for you, I'd see the same thing. What's with not having your own talk show / TV show? Because you have that personality that's way over the top. That I'm like, oh my God, people would just laugh watching him every week.
Well, I would do it, but I guess for me it's finding the connections and finding somebody that I think because for me, music has been such a struggle, and if I'm going to make a jump into something like that, right now where I am in my life, I need some sense of security. And that would mean, am I getting a steady paycheck every week for doing it? That kind of a thing. And I would do that. But at the same time, Cindy, my focus on writing and playing music, like I said, there's many kinds of people at different points in their life in their 40s. I'm one of those people that's been the gardener planting seeds for 25 years while teaching. And now I'm just starting to see my seeds come to fruition in ways that I was hoping for and that I've been working towards. So I'm really excited about pursuing music full-time as a career, performing, not like I haven't, but on the road. I want to know I got 60 dates coming up, and I'm going to be in all these towns, and we're performing with these people, and this is what's going on. I'm excited to do that. But at the same time, like I said, I have a background in theater and acting, and I like talking to people, and I'm interested in people. And to tell you the truth, most of the time I spend listening to talk radio, interviews, documentative stuff, things that are in some ways turning my mind on. So I really take that as a personal compliment. And a couple times people have said the same thing. Even Stover said, Ed, you want your own show? You know, Sherry Emily from... and I was like, well, I guess I could. I did, how much time would it take, and who would I have to research, and what am I doing? And then I started to think, do I have the time to dedicate to this? And it's something that, wow, I even jump at the chance to do an acting role. Like, I love doing that kind of stuff. So,
really?
But
so if I ask you to act, you will?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I love doing that
really?
stuff. Yeah, I spent 17 and a half hours on a movie shoot on my 30th birthday. That was my idea of a birthday present to myself.
Sure. Hey, I've been thinking about this too. You live in Canada, so here's my question. Let's say that you take off like crazy mad wild. Have you entertained the idea of leaving Canada, or are you just going to root there and just kind of travel on occasion?
Canada's my home. And to tell you the truth, one of the things that I want to do, because I've fallen in love with the island of Jamaica over the last couple of years, traveling there. And I sought out and met Bunny Wailer, who is the final surviving member of Bob Marley and the Wailers. And I've met people from Bob's family. I've visited Bob's grave. I've been to Bob's cousin's house. I've met his sister. That island, to me, has some sense of magic. Bob also represents, like Jimmy and other people in my musical influential background, one of those people that was talking about social conditioning, where we're at as people, how we need to love. When I was there, I was stupefied as to the lack of hands-on musical education that people in that country have. If you're an orphaned or wayward boy, the Alpha Boys School is the only school in all of Jamaica that will teach music as one of 5 trades on the island. And not until you're about 15 or 16 and you're in high school, if the high school has the money for it, will you get any kind of hands-on musical training. Most of the musicians that I met going from resort to resort or place to place all went to Alpha. And the reason that they're working is because of Alpha. So I started to think to myself, I would like to start a mobility bus, a music bus for kids that goes from parish to parish and school to school, teaching kids hands-on practical musical education, not just the notes and writing and reading and all the things that, but look, kids don't have access to a guitar. They don't have access to a drum set. If anybody knows the story of Bob Marley, he begged this guy in St. Anne's forever to give him this guitar in this pawn shop. Finally, the guy one day said, look, get out of here. Nesta, take it, leave. And the rest is history. Because of the passion as a kid and wanted it so bad. When I was there, I saw that everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, in 25 years of teaching, I've seen a lot of kids with incredible abilities and go on to some amazing things. But to see it so, like everywhere, it was like oozing out of people. I thought, why? Can this not happen here? And if it works here, in multiple places around the world, including my own country, where I even see the same thing happening, where kids just don't get the experience anymore. They have a bookmobile. It works the same way. Why should it be any different? Well, I met the chief of police there because my dad used to be the police commissioner. We got this incident with a car that wasn't insured. We got arrested. We went to, before you knew it, I'm playing music in the police station with guys in machine guns, people behind cages, and I'm talking to this guy about the idea. He loves it. They want to support it. I met a whole bunch of people from youth groups just playing football with people and running around and talking about the idea. They want to support it. So I met Bunny because Bunny Wailer's been trying to do the same thing for a number of years, but because he's a Rasta, and it ties once again sin into the stigmata of what marijuana, he wants to start kids' schools. But the federal government, they've had a lot of that won't let him do it because of that. So he was like a 1-hour meeting. I got to tell him my idea. We talked a little bit. We laughed a little bit. I got to meet a bunch of his friends. I explained what I wanted to do, and he basically said, look, if you can make this work, I will come and put my 2 cents on it. I'll give it my blessing, kind of a thing. So to think that if I started this and it actually worked and I had support from the local police as well as the youth groups and Bunny Wailer, who to me should be on the note there as far as I'm concerned, it should work. And let it be an example, not and self-sufficient, maybe through public donations, fundraising, whatever. Let it be an example for other people to do the same thing. Not to say we have to do this. You could, but other things that are like this where the community gets involved and does it, whether it's happening or not, because we care, because we want to see it happening. So,
Good point. Look at that. Now, I do not want to forget about mentioning this, so I want you to listen and make sure to correct me if I forget any of this, because I want to tell everybody all the contact information, every way to find you, the most obvious being www.edroman.net. You're on Twitter, and your handle is @SpecialEdRoman. You have a Facebook page for yourself, which is, of course, Ed Roman, and, of course, your fan page. Oh, my God, 40,000-plus likes. I'm jealous because I don't have that. You're on YouTube, iTunes, CD Baby, Amazon, and Reverb Nation. Did I forget anything?
No, you got it. I mean, I'm sure if you poked out there, I'm on Bandcamp if you wanted to check that out.
Right.
And also if you want to listen from older material as well, too, you can get me on SoundCloud, Ed Roman on SoundCloud.
Yes,
and you can listen to me. And if you want, you can get the Ed Roman app. It's totally free for Android or your iPhone. It's got all my dates, photos, videos. You can listen. There's like 35 different songs that are on there. You can have me in your pocket.
Man. I could literally have you in my pocket all the time. This is like so exciting. I can't even stand it. Now, speaking of your music,
we won't make any jokes about the vibration function.
No, we will not. We will not do that, actually.
Okay.
Before I forget now, we have two more things to do. First of all, I'm going to play your song Coming My Way, because I'm sure people that are listening want to hear what the hell you sound like when you're not talking, which is me actually singing.
Thank you.
So I'm going to play that. And then the last thing we're going to do is a tradition on this show, which is I'm going to tell you what I think of you. So that might make you cry, because it tends to make people cry. That tail end part tends to make everybody cry. So now you can drink your wine for 3 minutes, 22 seconds. I'm playing Ed Roman's version of Coming My Way. So here it comes.
I've been looking for a good time. I've been looking every day. I've been waiting for the sunshine. It's been coming my way. And it's been coming my way. I've been dancing at a hold down, loved it to the fight with folk. I've been sipping on the moonshine, I've been telling dirty jokes. And it's been coming my way. Leaving, deceiving, relieving me anyway. I'm hard of hearing, believing, the healing, it happens every day. Out a postcard, I could tell you all the news. I've been fighting off the demons, there's no way that I can lose. And it's been coming my way. And
Wow, that was you.
Me
That was
strumming
pretty cool.
and playing the banjo.
That was like totally cool. It was very, very cool. I also don't want to forget to mention, gig coming up, Gig Alert, February 20th, and this is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Blue Moose Bar is the name of the place. Do we have anything in Canada coming up prior to that, my dear? Or this is the newest gig?
We don't right now because I'm doing a lot of writing right now and focusing on something for the summer, actually, and trying to work out a bit of a summer tour. That's part of the Millennium Music Conference for anybody that doesn't know in Harrisburg. But in March 18th, be in Austin, Texas, baby, for South by Southwest, the biggest music festival in the United States for independent music.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
At Thirsty
So dumb
Nichols.
question.
What?
Am I closer to you going to Canada or am I closer to you going to Pennsylvania? Because Pennsylvania is a 10-hour
You're just in
drive.
Wisconsin,
I'm
right?
Canada.
Like, I mean, I figure that's like 6 hours.
Yeah,
10
that sounds
for me
about right,
is 8.
doesn't it? Yeah, but
I
then
think maybe I could
passport.
maybe even arrange a little travel through or something.
I know, but then I got to get a damn passport to come to your country. See, here's the problem.
No, I'm talking about when I'm
Canada.
coming through to PA. When I'm coming through to PA.
That's right. Or we could do that, actually.
But you're kind of on the other side of the lake, though, aren't you?
I know I am. I'm in a suburb. I live right on the river, actually, in a place called Glendale, Wisconsin. So outside of my doors, I have like a football field for the front yard, and then I have the river right behind me. So it's actually very suburban and very pretty. But I've been meaning to get to Canada to plan something. I mean, I need to do a public interview and a signing with Matt Williams because he's in my book. Doug Briney's in my book. You know, the people that I interviewed from last year are in my book. So, because of my son, I haven't been able to promote my book. So now I'm trying to stabilize them so that 2 days at a time I can travel and I can go do a book signing because I'm going to be doing a few of those this month. So I'm trying to coordinate things. But I don't want to forget here. I only have 13 minutes left, so I have to cram in a couple of different things. I'm going to tell you what I think of you, and that'll be the very last thing. But without a doubt whatsoever, whether it's my traveling to Pennsylvania or my traveling to Canada, I would be ever so lucky and ever so happy if my paths would cross with both yourself and your wife, because I just...
Hey, look, the door's always open here for you, Cindy.
I appreciate that. I would. I think that would be absolutely wonderful. Now I'm going to tell you what I think of you. This is going to be my 122nd rendition of Ed Roman. And this has been known to make people upset. I don't know why. I'm tired of making people cry, but I speak from my heart, and this is very important. And I always like leaving these last impressions of people that listen, and especially to the guest, because in case no one ever tells you, Sin has said to you exactly what I think. So this is what I think. To the listening audience, well before Ed Roman came on my show, we started chit-chatting and talking on social media, as you indicated. What I came to find right off the bat was he was eccentric to the same point that I'm eccentric. And by that I mean we carry a passion for everything that we do, everything that we love, and everything that we are. Our home bases are surrounded by our family and by our friends. We have meaning and purpose to everything that we write and everything that we do. One of the best qualities about Ed is that he is real. He is not phony, and there's no bullshit that comes along or is accompanied by who he is, what he does, or what he accomplishes. He is full of humility. He is full of just such handsome qualities, for lack of a better term. The fact that he is respectful to people, the fact that he is poignant and positive in his ways of thinking as it relates to politics, as it relates to his farming, as it relates to his music. He is respectful of his peers, something that is not happening nowadays. Musicians are not giving the accolades to each other that they should, or having the respect that they do for one another. So he's respectful, and he is poignant about making sure that he promotes not only himself but the people around him. He is gaga about his wife, a fact that nowadays does not happen in the musician world, because nowadays it's all about getting the chicks, getting the drugs, or getting both. But the fact that you adore your wife so much, the fact that you do business with her, so to speak, or partner with her, and the fact that you blend and mesh so well together with her, your fans, and your followers is not only inspiring, but it makes me gravitate to you. I feel very lucky and very honored to have known you all this time. One of the reasons I was so damn nervous about interviewing you is because you're so damn wonderful and because you're that damn good. I'm lucky to call you my friend and not just my interviewee. And I would feel very unhappy if you never said, I want to come back on that show. And I hope I've done you proper justice. That's it.
Well, you're
right.
You I'm here. Of course, Cindy, and I so greatly appreciate that, because that's all that I'm ever trying to do. And I think that as a human being, that's even as basic as it can be from your own backyard, that having that sense of honesty is well, I don't know what to say, and I would be honored to be on your show because by far you are the most well-read, in-depth researcher onto things that I didn't even think you would bring up. And you're a wonderful writer and a great host, and your show is wonderful. So I would have absolutely no trouble either coming to Wisconsin and playing or being on your show or any of those things because I just, like I said, having that connection with people, and even if you said, you know, he's a bit of a bastard sometimes, that's okay too because even hearing those things are important. I take everything to mind, not always to heart, but definitely to mind. So, I'm speechless. Thank you, Cindy.
And before I forget to mention to you, and certainly
teardrop in my cup of wine.
And of course, you don't get to drink wine on other shows because I'm betting that most of the time you get interviewed, alcohol's not allowed.
See, that's why we should hook up an pizza
because
we could do like a good wood-fired pizza thing and a bottle of wine. That would go down really well.
That's exactly right. And before I forget, when we get off of air, please make sure that you let me know of any and all Canadians. Like I said, that's the whole reason I started the Canadian format. And I do intend upon making it a platform by which people can listen to interviews in the U.S. and in Canada and find out about creatives alike, you know, because it's important to expand on the Canadian sort of things. And certainly we'll have to touch base because I have 5 film projects this year. If you're interested, I should say, in doing any of them or
anytime
music.
you're doing anything, then please post anything that you're doing. I'd be happy to do it. And I wouldn't hesitate either. Rachel, I only know her via Facebook, but if you really want to have an interesting, articulate young lady in person on your show, she's definitely there. And as I mentioned, Kevin Bright as well, too. Definitely, by far, one of Canada's finest musicians.
I would definitely love to get that information. And don't forget to hook me up with your wife because we have to hook up as far as the whole pottery thing. Get that taken care of and I'll feel a whole lot better.
Your info.
Definitely. So I'm going to let you off the hook because I'm probably going to cry in about a minute and a half for the kind things that you said. So get the hell out of here. I've kept you for 2 hours and 20-some minutes. I'm going to post about you. So
it's all good. I have the best time. This is the best Thursday I've had in a long time.
I know, right? This is an awesome, absolutely awesome. Before I forget, Michael Stover again, thank you so much because if it wasn't for you, Ed Roman wouldn't be on this platform or on this show right now, as a matter of fact. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And to you, Ed Roman, thank you for being you, and thank you for everything that you bring to my life. And I mean that in all sincerity. And it's not just because you're a musician, it's because you're you. And the fact that you're you and you keep to who you are means a great deal to me. So don't lose that. I appreciate it.
You know what,
now
Cindy,
get the hell off my show.
I won't forget it, Cindy, and you'd be surprised because so many people have told me I'm honorable to a fault. And I've started to figure that out in some ways. But at the same time, it's like somebody posed to me and said to me the other day, well, Ed, what if, like, Universal called you and they wanted to sign you and they said you couldn't work with the people that you were working with or like Mike Stover? I'd be like, I've worked hard to get where I am with these people. So to me, it's important for me to recognize what that is and to keep it close to me because I wouldn't be here without people like you or Michael or any of the people that have supported me. Dave and Mike that have played with me for 20 years, all of those people, it's all part of it. Anthony Cook, Chris Taggart, the list is endless. So, look, you want to work with me? You're going to have to work with these people because we built what we built together. It's not just about me and me going, yeah, give me cash and the notoriety. I don't give a shit about that. I know people with billions of dollars, millions of dollars, that are unhappy, that are greedy, that are egotists, that are playing this game that they think, well, just because I can sell ice cubes to the Eskimos, I'm famous. It has nothing to do with that for me. So I when you say those things, I'm flabbergasted. Thank you.
You're very welcome, my dear. Like I said, go look on my wall in like 10, 15 minutes. It'll all be written up. Pretty much kind of the same, similar to that. After I have a little bit of a cry and talk to my audience for like
I think so too. I'm going to have to go and like just pace for 10 minutes and think about what just happened. It was a pretty wild ride, my dear.
I'll have a glass of wine.
Like I said, by far the most in-depth and interesting interview.
Thank you. I appreciate that, my dear. And I hope your evening is wonderful. I hope I don't get stood up. I got stood up for one dinner date. Now I'm supposed to have another dinner date at 5, so we'll see.
Hey, I tell you what,
Sin, seeing
you're my friend, you're my friend, I tell you what, you filter your guys through me. I'll check them out for you.
When you get off of air, I'm going to send you a picture of the guy that I'm supposed to meet, and we'll go from there. Because in a personal, I'm not going to lie. The one thing I will admit before you go is this. In a perfect world, I would love to go out on a dinner date with Marshall Dane. In fact, I think I even asked him that on my show. He's a little cutie. And you know he's a Canadian musician, too. But
I know.
admit
He's
my last
right
name.
around here.
I know, right? He's adorable. But more importantly, I'm doing a comedic short film on the best Canadian there ever was, Kiefer Sutherland. My whole comedic short film is on Kiefer Sutherland. We got to talk about that one, honey, but we got to do it off air because they're going to cut me off, and more importantly, there's some things I know that I can't say on air. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh, good.
So
all good.
I'm going to let you go, and I'm choked up, and I'm going to drink my wine. We'll take 10 minutes. We'll regroup on Facebook. You go, and all I'm going to say is I love you, dear. That's it.
You're awesome, son. Love you too, and thanks so much for the interview. You're great. Hope everybody out
there
had
I'll
fun.
Talk to you soon.
Crazy. You love you. Bye.
Ed heads. All right. Talk to you later, doll.
See you, babe. Bye.
All right, kids. That was the almost, 2.5-hour interview with Ed Roman. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm crazy, but he's fabulous. Again, one more reminder, February 20th, the Blue Moose Bar in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania is his next gig. One more reminder on where you can find him. His music is on CD Baby, Amazon, Reverb Nation, iTunes, YouTube. His website is www.edroman.net. His Twitter handle is @SpecialEdRoman. And his Facebook, he has a personal page and also the Ed Roman musician page. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow to Sim's Chat Corner at 12 noon Central Standard Time. We're having Pimp the Pooch CEO, and that's Jordan Ansel, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time. Hope you guys stay safe and warm and out of the snow, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.
What you doing?
Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. By singing dog. By goal.
I pronounce you.
By wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.